Chapter 933. It was a little pungent, but Yi-Ching Luo had no time to care about that smell. She stared in shock at this huge dragon head. Following that, her heart pounded violently. Dragon. A blue-colored huge dragon. The arm around her waist tightened slightly, as though he was unhappy with her neglect towards him. Yi-Ching Luo turned her head around in a daze as her gaze congealed on the man's peerless face. That rosy lips were slightly pursed as his brows revealed some displeasure. You don't want me to interfere in your battle, I respect you. I spent so much effort to find this human dragon to assist you, but you just stare at a dragon in a daze. A low and hoarse voice rang in her ears. The warm male breath sprayed onto Yi-Ching Luo's earlobe. It caused the young lady's tender neck to pop out with beads of sweat. He squinted his peach blossom eyes in satisfaction as his voice became softer. Why, I'm not as good looking as a dragon? This tone. Why did it sound like he was jealous? Yi-Ching Luo moved unnaturally in his arms as a blush surfaced on her cheeks. I'm just astonished, Zhan isn't he? Wasn't Long Yunzhan being controlled by the profound Yin Qi? Why would he transform into a dragon to help her? Your blood awakened his rationality. Dmo Xian gave a light harumph as his tone was filled with displeasure. After he regained consciousness, he still retained the memories of being controlled and was unable to face what he had done, so he went into hiding. Yi-Ching Luo was stunned, recalling the sword that Long Yunzhan stabbed Yan Xiaoyi. Recalling Long Yunzhan's continuous attacks on her, taking her life. All these Long Yunzhan still remembered. He couldn't face them? I found him at the back mountain of King Ling's tomb and told him about the current situation. Dmo Xian shot a glance at that huge dragon head. That pair of bronze bell-like sapphire blue eyes flashed past a tinge of apology and guilt. Yi-Ching Luo heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Long Yunzhan was willing to stand out, that meant that he had already broken free from the profound Yin Qi's control and was fine. As for those matters, Yi-Ching Luo raised her hand and placed it on that dragon head. Her slender fingertips touched his mouth. Zhan, none of us will blame you for those things. If you really feel guilty and uneasy, then protect us when we leave the tomb of the Ling King and return to the academy. That pair of azure eyes shone brightly. Immediately after, the huge blue dragon circled in the air, and waves of dragon roars tore through the sky. He lowered his head and his beard straightened as it landed right in front of Yi-Ching Luo. This was inviting Yi-Ching Luo to sit on him. The corners of Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled up slightly, her blood-stained alluring face looked so flirtatious. Dmo Xian released her slender waist and did not stop her. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes were filled with gentleness as she regained her senses and gazed at the man behind her as she stretched out her arm to encircle his neck. He tiptoed and planted a light kiss on those rosy lips. She said softly, Xian, I'm sorry for making you worry. Definitely there won't be a next time. Let me be willful one more time. Wait for me. With that, she flipped over and leaped onto Long Yunzhan's back. The giant dragon spiraled up to the sky once more, streaking across the sky like a bolt of lightning. Numerous people below fell into a state of shock. Even those 10 black-robed men from the dark forces stared at the sky in shock. Dragon. The blue giant dragon's scales shone like flowing lights. That dragon roar shook everyone's heart. It was actually a dragon. The supreme dragon? The dragon that could only be seen in books? It actually appeared right in front of them. Chapter 934. This wasn't the end yet. What was even more shocking was yet to come. Just as everyone was in a daze from the shock, staring at the blue huge dragon, suddenly an earth-shattering tiger roar tore through the air. Under the huge dragon, a huge white tiger was suspended in mid-air. It was said to be huge, because it was at least 5 times the size of an ordinary tiger, and it was so sturdy that it made one tremble in fear. That white tiger stood majestically below the blue huge dragon, but it wasn't suppressed by the huge dragon's prestige at all. Its fur was snow-white, looking furry. On careful look, one could tell that the fur was as hard as steel. The king word on its forehead was sparkling with radiance. Its fangs were sharp and its claws were hard. White tiger, one of the ancient 4 sacred beasts, hailed as the ancestor of sacred beasts, white tiger. This was even higher than the Overlord's 9-tailed fox, sacred beast by several grades. What kind of day was today? A legendary dragon had arrived. There was even a legendary holy beast, the white tiger. Heavens! Were they dreaming? Cultivators from various powerhouses had their eyes opened wide, filled with shock and astonishment. They pinched themselves, slapped themselves. But eventually, this huge dragon, this sacred beast white tiger, was still majestically floating in mid-air. Wait. Patriarch Yuchi's expression was grave, but he couldn't conceal the greed and envy in his eyes. He raised his head up high, staring at the 2 legendary god-grade sacred beasts as he asked in a trembling voice, This dragon can be confirmed to be the World Group's Vice Group Leader's dragon, then. Where's the sacred beast white tiger? Everyone regained their senses from the shock. They immediately reacted. Right. They were now standing on Yi Qing Luo's side, battling against the 10 over people from the dark forces. This supreme dragon was Yi Qing Luo's dragon. Then she would be able to deal with these unkillable perverts from the dark forces. But where's that sacred beast white tiger? Was it the dark forces' white tiger or their side's war pet? Very quickly they got their answer. When the girl on the back of the blue dragon saw the white tiger, her eyes were filled with joy. She opened her arms towards the white tiger and said in a joyful voice, Chi-Chi. When the white tiger heard the call, it turned its huge body, raised its head, and rubbed against the girl's bosom. However, it was simply too big. The girl could only hold on to a small patch of fur on the white tiger's head. The tiger's roar gradually became deeper, as if it was filled with joy. Yes, this holy white tiger was Chi-Chi, who had been in a deep slumber for an entire month. It was 3 times bigger than when he first saw Mu Chi-Chi. Clearly, it had leveled up in its sleep. Or perhaps it was because the current Yi Qing Luo had found her profound jade heart and obtained the power of the divine relic. As a battle pet with a blood contract, the battle pet would share its power with its master. The pet's strength would change according to its master's strength. Master, Chi-Chi misses you so much. That childlike voice entered Yi Qing Luo's ears. This made Yi Qing Luo suddenly stunned. She immediately regained her senses as she stared at Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi, it's you? Yes, master. Chi-Chi can now use the human language to converse with you. Chi-Chi smiled excitedly. That tender and crisp voice was especially lovable. After Yi Qing Luo's shock, she was instantly overjoyed. Not only had her Chi-Chi's strength increased, she could even speak in human language. Chapter 935. Hearing Chi-Chi's words, Yi Qing Luo suddenly regained her senses. Her gaze immediately fell onto the battlefield below, on Leopard Saint Technique, who was still lying on the ground being treated by the profound Yin Qi as her gaze turned cold. Now wasn't the time to question Chi-Chi. She had to at least get rid of these 10 people from the dark forces. When the blue huge dragon and the sacred beast white tiger's vision were fixed on Leopard Saint Technique. Leopard Saint Technique, who was still fighting for time to treat himself, turned steely green. This trip to Nirvana Realm had shocked him greatly. Nirvana Realm not only had the beast human race, there were actually dragons and ancient sacred beasts. No wonder His Highness tried so hard to occupy Nirvana Realm. Ajahn, Chi-Chi. Let's work together and capture these few people from the dark forces alive. Yi Qing Luo had no intention to kill Leopard Saint Technique. Just crippling him was enough. Regarding the dark forces, the things that Guardian Snake knew were definitely not as much as Leopard Saint Technique. Even if Leopard Saint Technique wasn't willing to speak, she had the ability to pry open his mouth. The blue huge dragon let out a long dragon roar. It was mixed with a deafening tiger roar. Two huge shadows leaped down from the sky. The people of the various forces were completely shocked. One was a supreme dragon, and the other was a holy beast, the white tiger. They were both Yi Qing Luo's war pets? How was this possible? How could Yi Qing Luo possibly own such a high-leveled war pet? No wonder. Yi Qing Luo dared to be so arrogant and egotistical, as though she had no fear towards anything. From today onwards, the legend regarding Yi Qing Luo would shake the entire West continent, and even Nirvana realm. The world group's reputation had completely spread. Leopard Saint Technique and the other 9 cultivators from the Dark Forces had no way to retaliate under the huge dragon and white tiger's attack. The battle situation had completely reversed at this moment. It was merely half the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Leopard Saint Technique's 2 legs had already been broken by Chi-Chi's thick tiger claws. What Leopard Saint Technique wanted to do to her, Yi Qing Luo had returned it all to him, picking out his tendons and digging out his profound jade heart, casually throwing it to a mercenary group. As for the other 9 people from the Dark Forces, 6 of them died and the remaining 3 suffered the same treatment. These people were brought away by the world group's mercenaries. From the beginning until the end, none of the profound practitioners from the various powers dared to say a word. Yi Qing Luo didn't have the mood to bother about those people. She still needed the major forces to spread the news that the Dark Forces had already infiltrated the Nirvana realm. At the very least, he wanted to create some ripples in the Dark Forces. After settling everything, Yi Qing Luo was worried about Yan Shaoyi's injury, and knew that Long Yunzhan felt guilty towards Yan Shaoyi. There were also many brothers and sisters who were severely injured and in urgent need of treatment. He didn't stay any longer. He only said to the Yuchi family head, "The Yuchi family head will definitely be under the attention of the Dark Forces. If you don't want to die, pay attention to any suspicious people." After saying that, he led the dragon, tiger, and a group of brothers out of the Ling King's tomb. No one dared to stop them. Indeed, no one was more qualified than her to possess a divine artifact. After returning to the old house, Holy Thief, who had returned with Qiao Jin and the others, had already found more than 10 highly respected doctors to wait at home. Handing the brothers over to those doctors, Yi Qing Luo rejected the doctor's consultation and directly walked towards her own room. She was covered in blood and injuries, and she didn't want her brothers to see it, not willing to make them worry. Moreover, with old man Tsang around, the injuries on her would recover very quickly. Just entering the room, Yi Qing Luo saw a hot bathtub in the middle of the room. The fresh lavender fragrance floated over, making her tensed-up body and mind uncontrollably relaxed. She slowly walked towards the bathtub, as her slender jade fingers unbuttoned the black-colored clothes which had been solidified by the blood. Just as the indecent clothes were half removed, the tightly shut door was pushed open with a bam. The gentle breeze brought along a familiar sandalwood scent. Yi Qing Luo was stunned, and before she could even say a word, she already felt a scorching hot man's body approaching her. Dmo Xian condescendingly gazed at the young lady in front of him. His dark eyes slowly filled with blood, as it was dark and gloomy to the extent that it was terrifying. His scorching gaze slowly swept past her exquisite petite body. His gaze touched the softness in front of her chest, and a feeling which made one's mouth dry instantly attacked him from all directions. Chapter 936. Mo. Xian. Yi Qing Luo's face blushed as she bit her lips in anger. Why did he come? She speedily wrapped her underwear up and restrained her body from trembling, trying her best to ignore the heat from his gaze. But unexpectedly, she just wrapped her underwear tightly, was grasped by the man's slender fingers. Before Yi Qing Luo could react, her clothes were forcefully pulled down by Dmo Xian. "What are you doing?" Yi Qing Luo's ears were so red that water was dripping out. This man. Surely he didn't intentionally barge in at this moment? Her petite body trembled as both her hands pushed Dmo Xian's shoulders, trying to break free from the man's restraint. Dmo Xian's eyes sunk as his 5 fingers exerted a strong force, locking her arms. Suddenly, with a horizontal move, he hugged Yiqing Luo's waist in his arms. Yiqing Luo's arms subconsciously hugged Dmo Xian's neck. You! Yiqing Luo felt her heart beating very fast. Her throat was very dry and so were her lips. She pursed her lips and felt even more dry from the man's scorching breath. She instinctively licked her lips as her eyelids drooped down. Her long curly lashes fluttered unnaturally. Dmo Xian's brows creased tightly as his gloomy eyes gazed deeply at her. He was extremely displeased with her unconscious seductive actions. Didn't she know how tempting she was right now? Feeling the man's gaze, it became more and more scorching. Yiqing Luo felt more and more unnatural as she moved her body slightly. Don't move. A low hoarse voice rang beside her ear. He lowered his head slightly as his burning hot man's body got closer to her exposed skin. When he bent down, she could clearly hear his shallow breathing. His head was even closer to her. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened as astonishment flashed past her eyes. Surely he wouldn't really want to take this opportunity to do something to her, right? A man's desire came just like that? At this moment, Yiqing Luo couldn't care less about her shyness as she raised her head and grabbed Dmo Xian's lapel as she said anxiously, "Ah Xian, we are not suitable." Before she could finish her words, her fingers were pushed away by the man's nimble fingers. In the next second, his body felt light, and he was submerged into the bathtub. The warm water with the fragrance of lavender made her body and mind relax. She had just closed her eyes when she suddenly thought of something. She lowered her eyes and glanced at her moon xiong. Sure enough, she saw that the white doo-doo in front of her chest had been untied by the man and thrown somewhere. She didn't notice it at all. The mist spread out, but it was still unable to hide the redness on Yiqing Luo's cheek. "Wash up." A deep voice sounded from behind her. He was still standing by the tub. Yiqing Luo shrank back into the water. Fortunately, the water was soaked with flower petals, otherwise wouldn't this man see everything? Wait a minute, get out. She was bathing, why did he have to stand at the side and watch? Even if they had already confirmed their relationship. But it wasn't to the extent where they could be honest with each other, right? Moreover, what the hell did he mean by clean up? After washing it clean, so that he could eat it? This thought made Yiqing Luo's cheeks turn even redder. Pooh. What was she thinking about? Yiqing Luo patted her own face as the warm water wetted her cheek. Only this pat, Yiqing Luo suddenly realized. Her originally smooth and fair hands were now covered with big and small wounds. Chapter 937. Yiqing Luo's pupils dilated at this moment. These injuries were left behind during the battle with the Leopard Saint technique in the Ling King's tomb. After Mu Zi phase treatment and pain relief, she didn't feel any pain at all. She had also neglected these small injuries on her body. Not only her arms, her back, her legs, her entire body. It was filled with bright red wounds that were dripping with blood. Even for herself, when she saw this scene, she couldn't help but shiver. Not to mention Dmo Xian, who was standing by the side, looking at her body and mind. The wash clean, he mentioned. Was he asking her to wash the mess on her body? She had thought that Dmo Xian was because. Yiqing Luo curled up her body in the water as the shyness on her face disappeared. Her pink lips trembled as her voice turned slightly hoarse. "Ah Xian, go out first." This kind of body, even she herself felt nervous looking at it. Facing such a body full of scars, how could Dmo Xian possibly have any reaction? A woman would dress for the one who loved her. No matter who it was, no one was willing to let their beloved see such an unbearable side of themselves. Dmo Xian's gaze was deep as he stared at the inexplicably gloomy young lady in the water, as his brows creased tightly. Earlier she still had a bashful look, as though she flew into a rage out of embarrassment, like an enraged little wild cat. Why did she suddenly feel so dejected? Get out! Get out! Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. After she finished shouting this sentence, her mouth was buried in the water, as though she wanted to submerge herself into the water, unwilling to let him see. Glancing at the splashing warm water, there were still traces of blood stains. Dmo Xian understood. That pair of peach blossom eyes were filled with a smile. He bent down and his wide purple robe was rolled up to his wrists, as both hands reached into the water. Yiqing Luo stiffened as she shrunk to one side. The splashing warm water made his robe wet. His large palm, however, forcefully held on to both her arms. Using a little strength, he lifted her chin, which was half submerged in the water. Wash or I'll wash for you. His low and hoarse voice was filled with frivolity and ridicule. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as her cheeks couldn't help but blush. When she raised her eyes to look at him, his expression was still as indifferent as before. It could even be said that he was a little cold. The light in Gu Pan's bright eyes dimmed slightly. He would rather mind her now that she was covered with wounds. Otherwise, why would his expression be so cold? Perhaps it was because of her injuries, or perhaps it was because the man standing beside her was the person she cared about the most. The girl in the white mist looked extremely fragile. Once upon a time, even if she had been shot, she would have been able to survive a life and death situation by herself. Even if she was deboned and tortured inhumanely, she would still be strong enough not to make a sound. However, in front of this man, her emotions could never be truly indifferent. I do mind. A clear and elegant voice floated down from above. When every single word entered Yiqing Luo's ears, her eyelashes trembled as her gaze grew dimmer. The man behind her seemed to squat down. A scorching aura enveloped her back. The man's black hair fell into the water and stuck to the girl's skin. It was itchy and somewhat unbearable. Following that, a mellow voice like fine wine entered her eardrums extremely clearly. I mind that you've made yourself into this state, yet you refuse to ask me for help. Yiqing Luo's petite body trembled slightly, and finally softened into Dmo Xian's arms, which were soaked in warm water. Looking at my beloved woman, covered with scars. Have you ever thought about how much pain my heart is in? Dmo Xian's accusation made Yiqing Luo's heart tremble fiercely. Chapter 938. Because I promised you that I would let you grow up on your own, until you felt that you could stand by my side. I endured all my anger, all my impulses. I watched helplessly as you were injured again and again, yet you stood up again and again. Lil Luo, or how cruel you are. The last 4 words were like a sharp needle, piercing into Yiqing Luo's heart. That's right. How cruel she was. Looking at the person he loved with his own eyes, covered in wounds and drenched in blood, but because of the promise that they had made, because of her stubbornness and willfulness, she could only stand on the spot, filled with worry and heartache. I'm sorry. Yiqing Luo lowered her head as her pink lips slowly opened and closed, spitting out 3 words. Dmo Xian's slender fingers clasped her lower jaw, blocking her apology. The warm man's breath sprayed scorchingly. I'm very angry, so angry that I don't want to talk to you. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she turned her head around, anxiously wanting to apologize. Her mouth was blocked by the man fiercely. A hot and wet kiss deeply imprinted on her lip, as though he was venting the anger in his heart, or as though he was taking revenge on her. A scorching kiss, fiercely burning her lips, her body, her heart. Dmo Xian's strength was extremely strong, so much that Yiqing Luo was unable to withstand it. Her hazy eyes were like silk, as it faintly met with the man's ink-black pupils. That pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes was filled with deep feelings. However, that expression was filled with a trace of cold and sullen expression, but he couldn't bear to vent his anger on her, so he could only use this method to punish her. Guilt pervaded her heart. Butterfly Wing's eyelashes drooped slightly as Yiqing Luo automatically stretched out her arms, wrapping them around Diemo Xian's neck, giving herself completely to him. Pouring all her feelings into this kiss, ignited all the feelings between the two of them. The hazy fog outlined their figures indistinctly like a dream or a painting. This kiss lasted for a very, very long time. So long that Yiqing Luo had forgotten to breathe, as her petite body had completely collapsed into Diemo Xian's arms, heavily panting. Diemo Xian was willing to bite her lips, and this kiss had aroused his desire. The large palm which was holding onto Yiqing Luo's slender waist slowly moved upwards, directly covering the young lady's soft chest. Yiqing Luo bit her lips tightly and buried her head in Diemo Xian's chest. She was completely naked now, nestled in Diemo Xian's arms. She even took the initiative to kiss him. Oh my God! Yiqing Luo's cheeks were flushed red, so embarrassed that her entire body, which was covered with scars, started to turn pink. Especially the tips of his ears, which were so red that they looked like they could drip water. The hand in front of the moon Xiong had already started to move according to its own instincts. Yiqing Luo immediately pushed Diemo Xian's hand away. Ah Xian, enough. His broad and hot palm brushed past the skin on her chest. This caused Yiqing Luo's body to tremble even more violently. And because of this push, Diemo Xian's rationality returned to his mind. His dark and gloomy eyes swept over the blushing girl in his arms. Suddenly, Diemo Xian's long arm tightened around her, hugging her tightly in his arms. Yiqing Luo wanted to struggle, but she heard the man's scorching and heavy breathing, each more hurried than the other, as though he was enduring something. She instantly understood, as her body softened and obediently leaned into his arms. They hugged for a long time, until the warm water in the bathtub had already turned cold. Diemo Xian's arms suddenly exerted strength, carrying her petite body out of the water, turning around and placing her on the bed. Yiqing Luo's heart was beating non-stop, as her face was so red that she didn't dare to look at him. Chapter 939. Wipe yourself clean and lie down properly. Diemo Xian's voice was still slightly hoarse. Yiqing Luo immediately wrapped herself tightly in the silk cloth, wrapping her body tightly without leaving a single gap. Even though she grew up in such an open world in the 21st century. But Yiqing Luo had always been clean, never for the sake of the mission or the development of the hidden Yi family, to give herself to anyone. Even the once useless and cowardly Yiqing Luo, when she was in love with Leng Fenghua, she had never given herself up in order to capture his heart. Whether it was her previous life or this life. Diemo Xian was the only man she had intimate contact with. Still not wiping? Diemo Xian frowned, squinted his peach blossom eyes and slowly leaned over. Waiting for me to help you? Yiqing Luo's lips pursed tighter, blushed and shrank into the bed. I don't need your help, can you go out first? Diemo Xian didn't answer. Instead, he directly used his actions to express his answer. He walked straight to the side of the bed, bent down, and with a stretch of his long arms, wrapped himself in the silk cloth and herself into his embrace. Just when Yiqing Luo thought that he was going to do something, the man wrapped himself with the silk cloth and gently wiped the water droplets on her body. His gentle action made Yiqing Luo slightly stunned. Her watery eyes gazed at Diemo Xian's peerless face in a daze. Even when she was under Diemo Xian's control, lying on the bed, she still hadn't regained her senses. It may hurt a little, bear with it. Diemo Xian's voice became more and more hoarse. That magnetic voice was like a feather, tickling every part of her heart. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes blankly, apparently intoxicated in the handsome man trap, unable to extricate herself. Then, he felt a cool sensation on his back. Following that, her delicate body trembled, the feeling of pain, in an instant, hit her whole body. Oh! This pain made her completely regain her senses. Yiqing Luo wanted to move, but her limbs were in so much pain that she had no strength. Just a slight movement, there was a burst of tearing pain on her skin. Sealing off the pain for a long time is not suitable for healing, it will also cause great damage to the body. Dmo Xian sat by the bed, his slender fingers, holding a white jade medicine bottle. Yiqing Luo was drenched in cold sweat from the pain, and caught a glimpse of the medicine bottle. This was the medicine bottle that Dmo Xian was holding in his hand when he barged into the room. He was here to apply medicine for her? His heart was moved. Dmo Xian's light snort drifted into his ears. It's better if you die from pain. If it's not painful, you don't know how to learn. Dizun, can we still have fun? The feeling of being touched disappeared in an instant. When Dmo Xian applied the medicine, he was extremely serious and cautious. His black hair cascaded down like a cloud of smoke. Every now and then, he would brush his black hair aside to prevent his hair from falling onto Yiqing Luo's body, sweeping away the medicinal dew on her body. The sparkling and translucent medicinal fluid flowed over every inch of Yiqing Luo's skin. After the ice-cold feeling, came the sharp pain of the wound tearing. This was an antiseptic and anti-inflammatory medicinal liquid. Furthermore, it could also wash away the pain-killing powder that Mu Zifei had applied on her wounds when he was treating her previously. Yiqing Luo endured the pain as she laid prone on the bed, her slender fingers clutching the sheets tightly. Her little face was slightly red, her eyes were tightly shut, her expression was slightly painful. Her pearly white teeth tightly bit her lower lip, as if she was restraining herself from moaning in pain. But in reality, only she knew. Her current situation was simply. Chapter 940. The injuries on her body were indeed painful. But Yiqing Luo was already used to it. Especially, the man sitting by the bed made her have no extra thoughts to pay attention to that little bit of pain on her body. The stunning face buried under the white pillow was extremely red. The man's slender fingers brushed the ointment over her body. The iciness of the ointment was the same temperature as the man's fingers, making her body tremble from time to time, itching to scratch. Once she thought of herself lying naked in front of Dmo Xian, allowing his fingertips to caress every inch of her skin. She felt extremely ashamed, restraining the trembling of her petite body, restraining her voice that was about to overflow. The injury on the back has been applied. Dmo Xian's eyes flickered slightly as his throat moved. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled as she clutched the blanket tightly, covering the scenery in front of her. I'll do it myself, I'll do it myself. She sat up straight and coincidentally met eyes with Dmo Xian's bent body. From that pair of obsidian-like eyes, Yiqing Luo saw a trace of ridicule. So, Lil Luo wants me to apply medicine all over your body. The man's low and hoarse voice was suppressed to an extremely low level. In this atmosphere, it was especially tempting. Yiqing Luo's cheeks flushed red as she shyly lowered her head and growled in a low voice, Who wants you to apply medicine on me? The man gave a low laugh. The body that was half sitting by the side of the bed was trembling slightly from laughing. The entire bed also gave off a trembling sound. Such an atmosphere, it was a romantic feeling. Coupled with the sound of the bed's trembling, it seemed more and more ambiguous. The surrounding air temperature gradually rose. Yiqing Luo lowered her head, not daring to look at Dmo Xian's expression as she bit her pink lips and said softly, Put the medicine down and leave first. I come when you ask me to, I leave when you ask me to, wouldn't that be a loss of face? Dmo Xian intentionally shifted towards the bed, his gaze deep as he gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo. The scorching heat in his eyes seemed to want to swallow Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo had just shifted towards the inside of the bed when she was scooped up by the man's long arm and she fell into the man's arms. She exclaimed and clutched the sheets tightly. She looked up and said, Ah Xian. I said, I'm very angry. Dmo Xian deliberately leaned close to her ear, his inky black eyes gazing at the young lady's little face in his arms without blinking. Seeing her blushing because of him, her charming eyes filled with shyness, the bottom of his heart seemed to be filled with a warm, soft and sweet feeling. The girl in his arms stiffened. The struggling stopped. She obediently snuggled into his arms. After a long while, he heard her soft voice, "So sorry. What are you sorry for?" Diemo Xian hooked up her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. When their eyes met, a trace of shyness and panic flashed across those beautiful eyes. Yiqing Luo wanted to shift her gaze away, but was forced by the man's bad taste, so she could only look him in the eye. The man faintly hooked his lips beside her ear. Her eyelashes fluttered, her charming eyes gazed at him. After a long while, she slowly said, "I shouldn't let myself take on the risk, fall into danger. I shouldn't let you watch me get hurt and even stop you from helping me. I shouldn't." She was obedient. Unrestrained and unrestrained, she listed out several mistakes. So obedient that no one could bear to reprimand her. Diemo Xian's inky eyes reflected her face. Chapter 941. His arms were wrapped tightly around her waist, as though he wanted to integrate her into his body, to become one. "I'm sorry." Yiqing Luo had no words to refute and could only apologize. Yes, he was her man. If she didn't rely on her own man, was she going to let others rely on her? This thought made Yiqing Luo's face sunk. Even if it was just a casual thought, she would absolutely not allow Diemo Xian to belong to someone else. Her arms suddenly wrapped around Diemo Xian's neck as her elegant brows flowed with warmth. She straightened her body and kissed him on the lips. The young lady took the initiative to kiss him, making Diemo Xian slightly stunned. A smile flashed past his eyes as he immediately hugged her waist tightly, turning from guest to host. This kiss kissed until Yiqing Luo was out of breath, before Diemo Xian released her. The young lady's soft body, laid in the man's arms. Pink lips in the red moon, hazy and charming eyes, and that light, heart-stirring panting and instinctive moaning. All were subconsciously provoking the man to become a beast. Diemo Xian's hand, which was hugging her waist, increased the strength. Yiqing Luo had difficulty in breathing, and her abdomen was pushed slightly by the strangling. "Lil Luo." Diemo Xian's hoarse voice was filled with a strong desire. Yiqing Luo didn't hear it. She, who was in a daze from the kiss, raised her eyes and blinked at him. Her lower jaw was locked heavily by Diemo Xian. The man's ink-black eyes seemed as though he could see through her soul, as he gazed deeply into her eyes. In his eyes there was a spark of excitement. "You're seducing me." This was a statement, not a question. Yiqing Luo's heart skipped a few beats. I didn't." Diemo Xian stared at her swollen red lips, stained by his sparkling luster, as if seeking his kiss. "Didn't." Diemo Xian's fingers swept past her lips. "You're only wrapped in a blanket and you took the initiative to kiss me. Isn't this seducing me?" Yiqing Luo's face instantly flushed red. Her little face immediately turned away, not daring to look at him. In the earlier situation, her mind was filled with Diemo Xian's anger and guilt, thinking of how to apologize to Diemo Xian, to dispel his anger. Deep in love, he naturally kissed her. How could he have known that he was currently naked, looking at the young girl who was so shy that she couldn't even say a word? That shyness really aroused a man's desire. Furthermore, it was the woman he loved. If it was during normal times, Diemo Xian would definitely not be willing to restrain himself. After all, he and Yiqing Luo were in love with each other, and he had only set his eyes on Yiqing Luo alone. In future, whoever would get married, have children and grow old together. This kind of thing would happen sooner or later. But now Yiqing Luo had just experienced a life-and-death battle and was covered with injuries. He wasn't so beastly as to not care about his beloved woman's body to settle his Beast Valley debt. He tightened the blanket on Yiqing Luo and straightened his back towards him. "Apply the medicine." After saying that, he left without looking back. If one looked closely, one could see that the warm water had soaked his body, and his muscles were tightly clenched. That footstep seemed extremely flustered. The man got up and Yi-Ching Luo felt a gust of cold wind. She wrapped the blanket tightly and saw Dmo Xian getting off the bed. Just as she was about to call out to him, she saw him leaving her room directly. Her heart trembled fiercely. Staring at the door, she was in a daze. Was he angry? Because she was too proactive? Chapter 942. Lass, you're really too slow. Suddenly, Old Man Tsang's voice sounded in her mind. He looked like he couldn't bear it anymore. Usually you look so smart, why are you so slow when it comes to the matters between men and women? Yi-Ching Luo was stunned and only recovered after a long while. Her cheeks flushed red as she gritted her teeth and said angrily, "Just now, you saw it all." She and Dmo Xian almost had sex. She took the initiative to give a kiss, all given by Old Man Tsang. I still know how to write the words "don't look at indecent things." Old Man Tsang snorted and explained, "I don't have that kind of perverted hobby." Old Man Tsang rolled his eyes in the azure dew bracelet. He didn't have the leisure to stare at Yi-Ching Luo 24 hours a day. If it wasn't for the sudden feeling of the lass's inexplicable disappointment, he wouldn't have opened his eyes to figure out what had happened. Yi-Ching Luo's mood gradually calmed down and lowered her eyes, unable to hide her disappointment. Oh, Old Man Tsang couldn't bear to see her like this. In his memory, Yi-Ching Luo had always been confident and flamboyant. Unlike now, dejected as if she had lost everything in the world. She really had deep feelings for that kid Dmo Xian. Lass, don't let your imagination run wild. That kid loves you so much that's why he left now. When Old Man Tsang opened his eyes, he happened to see Dmo Xian leaving and Yi-Ching Luo staring at his departing back in a daze. Old Man Tsang had lived for thousands of years. Seeing this scene, coupled with the fact that Yi-Ching Luo was only wrapped in a sheet, he could roughly guess the reason for her low mood. "Loves me so much?" Yi-Ching Luo murmured. If he loved her so much, why did he leave without looking back? Old Man Tsang clicked his tongue and said earnestly, "Any man who sees his beloved woman in a disheveled state will not be able to keep calm, especially after being so intimate with you. If he stayed any longer, it's inevitable that something uncontrollable will happen." Old Man Tsang was an elder, but when he mentioned this topic, Yi-Ching Luo couldn't help but blush. "You're badly injured now. He left in such a hurry because he cared about you and didn't want to lose control and do something to hurt you. As for why he left, I'm sure you understand." Throwing down these words, Old Man Tsang faintly sighed. Yi-Ching Luo's cheeks turned even redder. He was in such a hurry to leave because he cared about her. Because he did not want to hurt her body by doing that kind of thing when she was injured. He left, it was not that he was disgusted with her. But he cared about her. The corners of her mouth unconsciously curled up into a smile. Her eyes were filled with happiness and sweetness. The old man in the azure dew bracelet clicked his tongue. Loved it was so powerful. Even Yi-Ching Luo, who had never lowered her head and was so strong as though she was made of iron, would also sink into love and become a little woman. It's good to be young. Old Man Tsang turned off his sight and hearing once more. He continued to dive into the azure dew bracelet and study the Purgatory Pagoda. In another courtyard of the Under Heaven mansion. It was quiet, completely different from the liveliness of the outer court. An ordinary-looking young man dressed in a black robe carried a bowl of steaming hot medicinal soup as he slowly walked into a room. The room's furnishings were monotonous and the colors were dark. It looked extremely oppressive and cold, without a hint of human presence. The young man's line of sight fell onto the bed. This bed was also monotonous and cold. There were no gauze curtains or patterns. Chapter 943. He could not imagine that this was a girl's room. Lying on the bed was a delicate and pretty young girl. Her face was pale and her eyes were tightly shut. Her brows were slightly furrowed as if she was in pain in her sleep. Her pale lips were trembling slightly. The young man frowned and walked over quickly. After putting the medicine aside, he walked to the bed and was about to bend over. The girl on the bed suddenly struggled in pain. She stretched out her hands and grabbed at something. The young man's brows furrowed even more and his eyes darkened. Staring at the slender and fair little hand, he finally shook his own hand. The girl seemed to feel at ease when she felt the warmth. She clenched his broad palm tightly. Her soft skin caressed his palm. It carried the unique fragrance of a girl and entered his nose. The young man was stunned for a while. He bent over and sat by the bed. He was about to wake the girl up. Perhaps the girl sensed that someone was approaching. She held the young man's hand and slowly moved closer to him. In the end, she found a comfortable position in his arms and fell asleep peacefully. Her tightly knitted eyebrows also relaxed. The young man's body stiffened and he only came back to his senses after a long while. He looked at the girl in his arms in a daze. His expression was a little embarrassed and helpless. He wanted to push her away, but his hand paused in midair when he saw her sleeping peacefully. After being stunned for a long time, the young man retracted his hand and slowly placed it on her waist. He lowered his eyes and looked at the girl's delicate and pretty face. Even he did not realize that the expression on his face had become increasingly gentle. When she was sleeping, it was completely different from when she was sharp-tongued and hot-tempered. It was extremely quiet. So quiet that it made one's heart ache. Her body, how could it be so soft? It was like a ball of cotton, nestling softly in his arms. The smile in his eyes became increasingly gentle. However, beautiful moments could never last for too long. At this moment, hurried footsteps could be heard from outside. Then, a gentle and concerned voice of a girl could be heard. "Xiao Jin, how is Miss Yen?" The door was opened, and a woman in a peach-colored short skirt and simple attire ran in. The worry on his face froze when he saw the scene in the room. On the bed, the young man and young woman embracing each other were precisely Xiao Jin and Yen Xiao Yi. Xiao Jin's hand, which was holding Yen Xiao Yi's delicate body, instantly froze. He stared awkwardly at the person in his arms, then looked at the woman opposite him. "Taozi, Shu, don't wake her up." Peach was also embarrassed. She covered her eyes, bowed, and stepped back. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Please continue, please continue. Don't misunderstand, I'm not, Peach was in such a hurry to leave that she didn't pay attention to the threshold of the door. She fell backward and sat on the ground. She covered her mouth in pain and endured the sharp pain coming from her buttocks. "Peach!" Xiao Jin subconsciously wanted to get up to get the peach, but just as he moved, he remembered that he was still carrying Yen Xiao Yi in his arms. He could only squat down and pull Yen Xiao Yi's hands away. He was about to carefully place her back onto the bed. The girl's clear eyes slowly opened. There was no sleepiness in his eyes. It clearly reflected Xiao Jin's face. Chapter 944. Yen Xiao Yi's face was pale and her expression couldn't be seen. However, when a pair of clear and beautiful eyes quietly stared at Xiao Jin felt an indescribable sense of guilt. After a while, Yen Xiao Yi furrowed her brows and glanced at Peach, who was still sitting on the ground and enduring the pain without making a sound. Her dry lips moved slowly. "Don't worry about me, go help Miss Tao." Xiao Jin saw that she didn't question why he was carrying her and instantly heaved a sigh of relief. He hurriedly stood up and rushed to Peach, reaching out to help her up. Peach looked at the expressionless Yen Xiao Yi and then at Xiao Jin, who was standing stiffly beside her to ease the awkwardness. She felt helpless. These two slow-witted and tsundere people. If she didn't give him a push, when would she be able to understand his thoughts? "Xiao Jin, don't worry about me, I'm fine. Go take care of Miss Yen." Peach smiled and brushed Xiao Jin's hand away. Xiao Jin had always been thick-skinned, but now it was so thin that it would break with a poke. He glanced at Yen Xiao Yi from the corner of his eye and saw that her clear and beautiful eyes were still staring straight at him. This was the rhythm of a punitive expedition against him. Immediately, he laughed dryly. "Since she's awake, there's no need to take care of her. Your fall is worse, can you still walk? I'll help you to the front hall, and let Lulu take a look." With that, he reached out to hold Peach's arm and led her to the door. Peach was about to kneel down in front of Qiao Jin. Just how slow was this man? Even though she was very clear that Qiao Jin had chosen to help her away because he had been caught red-handed by Yan Xiaoyi and had taken advantage of Yan Xiaoyi. That was because she was shy. But if he helped her leave, in other people's eyes, they would think that he cared more about her. Like Yan Xiaoyi. Peach was about to hold her forehead and sigh. Yes, Miss Tao's injury is worse. A cold voice came from the bed. Yan Xiaoyi scoffed softly as her pale lips curled into a smile that was not a smile. Anyway, I don't have any special relationship with him. Miss Tao, don't misunderstand, lest Qiao Jin finds it hard to explain to you. That seemingly elegant but extremely cold smile caused Peach to shiver uncontrollably. It was over. Yan Xiaoyi had indeed misunderstood. She coughed lightly and hurriedly explained. He doesn't need to explain anything to me, and I didn't misunderstand that. You guys talk, I'll go to the front hall to find Lulu. With that, Peach quickly turned around and wanted to escape from Yan Xiaoyi's room. The moment he moved, he felt a tearing pain coming from his buttock. She took a deep breath and did not have the courage to take another step. Just as she was in a terrible fix, Peach felt her body lighten and was carried horizontally in Qiao Jin's arms. Her delicate body stiffened, and she instinctively wrapped her arms around Qiao Jin's neck. When she wrapped her arms around Qiao Jin's neck, Peach's expression changed slightly. She thought to herself, it's over. She looked over Qiao Jin's shoulder at Yan Xiaoyi on the bed. The young girl's pale face was indifferent, without any ripples. However, there seemed to be some light in her beautiful eyes that was gradually dimming. Peach's heart trembled. She opened her mouth, wanting to explain something for Qiao Jin. But Qiao Jin had already carried her out of the room and walked towards the front hall. The words she wanted to say stopped at the tip of her tongue. She retracted her gaze and raised her eyes slightly, staring at the young man who was carrying her. A strong masculine aura enveloped her body. Peach blushed and lowered her eyes shyly, not daring to look at him again. This man was really silly. But he was silly and adorable. It was no wonder that even though Qiao Jin's looks were not outstanding. Chapter 945. Yan Xiaoyi leaned against the side of the bed, her eyes staring at the open door in a daze. Qiao Jin and Tao Tao's figures had long disappeared before her eyes. But she still couldn't retract her gaze. Was he so afraid that Tao Tao would misunderstand their relationship? Was he so reluctant to let Tao Tao get hurt? Was he so distressed for Tao Tao? Yan Xiaoyi sneered, her face becoming increasingly pale. She was lying on the bed. The poison in her body had not been detoxified. Perhaps if she couldn't find the antidote, she would die. But in Qiao Jin's eyes, it was just Tao Tao who had hurt her buttocks, who was more seriously injured than her. It was enough to prove Tao Tao's position in Qiao Jin's heart. She was thinking too highly of herself. Yan Xiaoyi closed her lifeless beautiful eyes. Suddenly, her head sank, and a feeling of dizziness came over her. Her consciousness gradually blurred, and finally fell on the bed, unconscious. Front hall. Groups of mercenaries were queuing up to treat the doctor. When Qiao Jin carried the Peach and walked out, the bustling and clamorous front hall instantly fell into a deathly silence. The silence lasted for half an incense stick of time. Qiao Jin was dumbfounded, being stared at by dozens of eyes. He couldn't react for a moment. Tao blushed and awkwardly patted his shoulder. That? Qiao Jin, put me down first. Qiao Jin suddenly regained his senses and hurriedly put Tao down. I've offended you, I'm sorry. I just saw that you seemed to be in a lot of pain, so I didn't think too much. He actually carried a woman? And without saying anything, he decisively and forcefully held her in his arms. No, it's okay. Tao's blushing little face couldn't reduce the heat on her face. She unnaturally shifted her gaze, holding her buttocks, and limped towards Baiming Lulu. Lulu, before she could finish, Baiming Lulu cried out in surprise. You guys actually developed this relationship? Tao's face instantly turned even redder. No, no, Jean, let me tell you. Young people need to control themselves. A young lady's body is very delicate. You bullied her so badly that she can't even stand properly, you say. Baiming Lulu clicked her tongue, expressing a look of disgust towards Xiao Jin. The dozens of people in the front hall burst into laughter when they heard this. Lulu. Peach raised her voice and grabbed Baiming Lulu's arm. What nonsense are you talking about? How could a 16-year-old girl say something like that? Between her and Xiao Jin, they were just ordinary friends. Baiming Lulu glanced at Taozi's buttocks and patted her shoulder earnestly. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be shy. I'm a doctor. In front of a doctor, any privacy is not privacy. If you talk nonsense again, I will ignore you. If there are any rare herbs in the future, I won't ask 3,000 peach blossoms to ask around for you. Peach flew into a rage out of shame. Baiming Lulu had always been a blabbermouth when it came to matters related to treatment. She wasn't joking when she said that. Instead, he seriously considered it from the perspective of a doctor. But there were still so many people around, and they were pushing her and Xiao Jin into a pair. Not to mention that her reputation was tarnished. If this were to spread to Yan Xiaoyi, even 10 mouths wouldn't be able to clear her name. At this moment, they heard a sweet voice leisurely. What do you mean by paying attention to moderation? Who bullied the other until they couldn't stand? Chapter 946. Everyone's vision turned towards the person who spoke. They saw Yiqing Luo, who was dressed in a long red dress, walking over with light step. Perhaps it was because they had rarely seen her wearing such a gorgeous and flirtatious color. The mercenaries' gazes were filled with astonishment. The fiery red dress fluttered in the wind, swaying like a blooming rose. When she took a step, it seemed like a billowing fire wave swayed. It was extremely flirtatious and breathtaking. What's the matter? Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as her vision shot towards Baiming Lulu. What interesting topic were you talking about earlier? Why did you become quiet the moment I arrived? Baiming Lulu blinked her eyes as she enviously gazed at Yiqing Luo's red dress, as though she was infatuated, replying in a daze. I was advising Jin Zi to control himself, not to be too rough with young ladies. Lulu. Peach grabbed Baiming Lulu's arm tightly as her cheeks flushed red. I accidentally tripped, it's not what you think. Baiming Lulu looked suspiciously at Peach's buttocks. Tripped? Seeing Baiming Lulu's suspicious look, Xiao Jin couldn't take it anymore. Don't talk rubbish, Peach and I are just ordinary friends, don't ruin her reputation. Seeing Xiao Jin getting angry, Baiming Lulu's expression suddenly turned serious as she hooked Peach's arm, placing it on her shoulder. All right, I'll leave now. Her words had just ended when Baiming Lulu and Peach's silhouettes were nowhere to be seen. The entire hall of mercenaries burst out laughing. Yiqing Luo looked at Xiao Jin as her brows creased slightly. How Xiao-yi? Baiming Lulu's thoughts had always been on medical skills and alchemy. Towards matters of the heart, she was even slower than Xiao Jin. Generally speaking, she would absolutely not misunderstand that Xiao Jin and Peach had an ambiguous relationship, unless, what had they done to cause others to misunderstand? If Xiao Jin and Peach really had some relationship, then, what about Xiao-yi? Mentioning Yan Xiao-yi, Xiao Jin's mind suddenly recalled the scene earlier when he pulled Yan Xiao-yi into his arms. The young lady's fresh body fragrance was still lingering in his nose. His fingers seemed to still retain the softness of the young lady's body. His face instantly flushed slightly as he lowered his head and didn't reply. What kind of expression was that? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she sized up Xiao Jin's expression deeply. However, he was unable to guess what he was trying to express. I'll go take a look at Xiao-yi. Yiqing Luo was too lazy to continue guessing. The current situation was not the time to think about love. Xiao Jin and Yan Xiao-yi's relationship could only depend on themselves. If Xiao Jin really chose the peach in the end, He could only smile and wish him well. She walked a few steps towards Yan Shaoyi's courtyard, then thought of something and stopped in her tracks. I told you to find Master Ghost Doctor to save Xiao Yi. Have you found him? Xiao Jin's expression instantly returned to normal. Her cheeks, which were slightly flushed, had already returned to normal. His expression also became serious. By the way, I have something to discuss with you. As he spoke, he took out a brocade pouch from his bosom. It was the brocade bag which Yiqing Luo had given to Xiao Jin, asking him to look for Ghost Doctor. In other words, Xiao Jin had not seen the Ghost Doctor. Seeing Xiao Jin's solemn expression, Yiqing Luo recalled her battle with the Leopard Saint technique in King Ling's tomb as she muttered to herself for a moment, I happen to have something to discuss with everyone. 1 hour later, we'll meet at the meeting hall. The mercenaries in the front hall could hear the seriousness in their words. The playful smiles on their faces instantly faded as all of them looked towards Yiqing Luo, responding in unison, yes. Chapter 947. Yiqing Luo went to Yan Shaoyi's courtyard. As soon as he stepped into her room, he saw the pale-faced young lady leaning against the headboard with her eyes closed and her breathing shallow. Obviously, he had already fainted. Yiqing Luo walked over quickly and caught a glimpse of the bowl of cold medicinal soup on the table. Her eyebrows unconsciously furrowed. Xiao Yi, what happened to Xiao Yi? Xiao Jin, who was following closely behind, saw the unconscious Yan Xiao Yi, and his body instantly stiffened. Yiqing Luo used one arm to support Yan Xiao Yi as her fingers placed on her pulse. After searching for a while, she frowned and glanced at the young man standing at the door in a daze. Then, she turned back. She took out a pill bottle from the profound phoenix ring and fed it to Yan Xiao Yi. Then, he helped Yan Xiao Yi lie down carefully and tucked her into the blanket. She did that? Xiao Jin only came back to his senses after a long while. Looking at Yan Xiao Yi's pale complexion, there was an indescribable dull pain in his heart. Yiqing Luo glanced at the medicinal soup by the side. Who prescribed this medicinal soup? Holy pirate. Xiao Jin walked over and picked up the bowl of medicine. Is there a problem with this medicine? I've already fed it to Xiao Yi twice. Could it be? There's no problem with this medicine. Yiqing Luo interrupted his wild imagination. Holy pirate? This old man had learned all his skills. His stealing skills could be said to be the best in the world. He even knows medicine? The herbs in this bowl of soup were all herbs that could suppress the purple poppy grass. To Yan Xiao Yi, there were only advantages and no disadvantages. Why haven't you taken this bowl of medicine yet? It was still placed at the side. It was already cold. Xiao Jin's expression changed slightly as he coughed lightly. Yiqing Luo thought of the matter regarding the peach earlier and didn't continue to probe further. The reason why Yan Xiao Yi fainted was because her emotions were unstable, which caused the poison in her body to spread. This emotional instability. It must have something to do with Xiao Jin and peaches. She could more or less see Yan Xiao Yi's feelings for Xiao Jin. However, Yiqing Luo sighed as she stood up and left the bedside, turning her head to look at the uneasy Xiao Jin who was standing behind her. The poison in Xiao Yi's body has already started to spread, and we must find my master to formulate the antidote as soon as possible. The antidote to purple poppy grass, purple millet grass, the ghost doctor would definitely have it. However, Shangguan Liuli had said before that the poison in Yan Xiao Yi's body was mixed with a poison powder specially made by the dark forces. Just the purple millet grass alone could not completely cure the poison. He did not know whether Shangguan Liuli's words were true or false. But regardless of whether it was true or not, she had to believe it. She had no choice. Xiao Jin panicked. The academy will be completely locked down during the holidays. Even teachers and elders cannot stay in the academy. I snuck into the academy, but I didn't find any traces of the ghost doctor. Even if no one could stay in the academy, a ghost doctor who found it troublesome, a ghost doctor who had her own medicine refining room, shouldn't leave the academy. I also discovered something very strange in the academy. At the mention of the academy, Qiao Jin's expression became grave. He paused again. Let's talk about it together in the meeting hall. Yiqing Luo nodded. Let's go, let's head to the meeting hall first and wait for everyone to gather. In the meeting hall, there were already more than 20 mercenaries who had received the notice. Hearing the hubbub in the meeting hall, they were all discussing about the dark forces matters, as though they were having a great time. Yiqing Luo was just about to take a step in when she bumped into a warm and broad embrace. She painfully raised her head and met with a pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes. He had changed into a purple robe and his misty black hair was scattered over his shoulders. Chapter 948. He also went to take a bath. In her mind, she suddenly recalled what old man Tsang said. A man, in the naked embrace of the woman he loved, took the initiative to kiss him. He couldn't bear to hurt her, so he hurriedly left to do something. Indeed, what old man Tsang said was right. He didn't want to hurt her. Yiqing Luo instantly felt a feeling of being cherished. Her eyes were filled with smiles as she stretched out her hand and hugged Dmo Xian's sturdy waist. Ah Xian, we are preparing for the meeting. Dmo Xian squinted his eyes as he held her hand and sized her up carefully. After confirming that her wounds had been smeared with medicine, he put down her hand and hugged her waist tightly as he walked directly into the meeting hall. Didn't you just leave the meeting hall? And his actions were so hurried, otherwise he wouldn't have coincidentally bumped into her earlier. To pick you up. A simple and crude reply made Yiqing Luo's cheeks burn slightly. Seeing those brothers in the meeting hall looking at her with ridicule, Yiqing Luo's cheeks were boiling hot as she complained to Dmo Xian, my prestige as vice group leader has been swept away by you. Cough cough. Tong Ziqing choked on her saliva when she heard that. Qing Luo, don't say it as if you have prestige. Enna Pan nodded in agreement. Madam Qing Luo, I've never felt that you have prestige. This group of little fellows who were tearing me down, could they still play happily? The atmosphere in the meeting hall gradually relaxed. After a while, all the mercenaries who were still able to stand up had gathered in the meeting hall. Yiqing Luo took a look. There were about 5 mercenaries who were bedridden due to their heavy injuries and had not come over. She heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily all her brothers had survived this battle. Her gaze swept past those brothers who were standing upright as her gaze fixed on Baiming Lianqing. Did you bring the corpse king back? Baiming Lianqing nodded respectfully. I brought my brothers and found the corpse king in the ruins of the tomb. Losing the tomb's yin-qi nourishment, the corpse king no longer has any battle power. I have already handed the corpse king and its coffin over to the Mercenary Association, receiving 600 mercenary group credit points and a sword manual. 600 points? As expected of the random mission of the random missions. As expected of a complicated training mission. The rewards were so generous that it was equivalent to what all of them would get if they took on and completed quests for an entire month. Random quests doubled the honor point. In other words, 300 points had turned into 600 points. Currently, the World Mercenary Group's honor points was 191 points. After deducting the 100 honor points for giving up on the first low-level training mission. In addition to these 600 points, he would have 691 honor points. Promotion to a silver mercenary group required 5,000 honor points. It seemed like there was still a long way to go. What's that sword manual? Yiqing Luo didn't take a good look at the mission's reward at that time. A complex experience mission, only honor points and a sword manual? When Baiming Lianqing took out that sword manual, Yiqing Luo instantly understood. If this sword manual was leaked out, it would definitely cause countless swordsmen in the Nirvana realm to fight over it. This was the pinnacle of swordsmanship, the 15 styles of flowing clouds and gales. Yiqing Luo had also heard of this swordplay. It was rumored that the execution of this sword technique was as smooth as flowing water, like a gale. Chapter 949. Take a look at this sword manual. Which brother in the mercenary group is a swordsman? Take it to practice. Yiqing Luo placed the sword manual back into Bei Ming Liancheng's hands and immediately coughed lightly. Back to the main topic. She clapped her hands, indicating for everyone to shift their gazes from the sword manual to her. Ziqing, did those people from the dark forces who were locked up in the underground room say anything? The minute they returned to the old residence, Yiqing Luo got someone to lock up the 4 people from the dark forces who were still alive in the underground room. This underground room was dug out by God Thief in this 1 month's time. His original intention was to hide the things that he had stolen in the underground room. But now it had become the underground room to lock up the dark forces. Tong Ziqing shook her head. Their mouths are sealed tight and they've already been tortured, but they refuse to say a single word. No matter, we still have a lot of time. Yiqing Luo didn't expect Leopard Saint Fa to obediently spill out everything about the dark forces. Smart people understood. This was their only bargaining chip to survive. They who were crippled couldn't escape even if they wanted to. They could only try their best to survive and wait for the Lord to save them. Yiqing Luo had long seen through Leopard Saint Fa and the others' thoughts. Save? The dark forces were all selfish people. Rather than saving, it was more practical to silence them. Although they were going to report to the academy tomorrow. But with God Thief watching over the underground room, Yiqing Luo wasn't afraid that Leopard Saint Fa and the others would escape. If that lord really came, they would be able to catch a turtle in a jar. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as she said calmly, "When I was retrieving the god relic in King Ling's tomb, I met 3 people from the dark forces. They should be considered as people with some status in the dark forces." From that guardian snake's mouth, the current thing we know is that the dark forces are preparing to invade Nirvana realm. Currently 1/3 of the dark forces are hiding in the dark corners of Nirvana realm, preparing to take in even more cultivators to be used by the dark forces. The minute she said that, the meeting hall fell into a dead silence. 1/3 of the dark forces were already in Nirvana realm. However, in the entire Nirvana realm, other than them, no one else had noticed this. In other words, even if they had noticed it, they had made deals with the dark forces and concealed their existence. So, the reason why the profound practitioners from those powers were released from the Ling King's tomb, other than allowing them to help the Under Heaven mercenary group build momentum, the most important reason was to allow them to spread the news of the dark forces in the Nirvana realm. I'm sure that it won't be long before the profound practitioners of the various forces will be wary of the existence of the dark forces. The dark forces' plans will definitely be disrupted. The mercenaries looked solemn. The news of the dark organization spread out. This time, the Tomb King's tomb mission was no longer just a simple mission. From the start of this mission, the World Mercenary Group was destined to become the focus of attention. The dark forces would definitely treat the World Mercenary Group as their first target. You all have to be careful in the academy. Yiqing Luo thought of Heavenly Academy's director and her eyes sunk. Try to avoid letting other students see your faces. In the academy, they have their own forces. Speaking of the academy, Qiao Jin immediately nodded. Yes, there are dark forces in the academy as well. When you went to the academy, what did you see? Yiqing Luo asked. Chapter 950. According to the academy's rules, no one is allowed to approach the academy during the holidays. Qiao Jin frowned, his expression solemn as he said, "After I snuck into the academy, there were people in the academy." Everyone's expressions didn't change. They could roughly guess who those people were. That's right. It's the people from the dark forces. Qiao Jin solemnly nodded his head. In a concise and comprehensive manner, he talked about what happened after he snuck into the academy. Whenever the academy was on holiday, the headmaster would chase all the guards out of the academy and have them stand guard outside the academy, not even letting a fly escape. Qiao Jin expended a great deal of effort before sneaking into the academy. The academy was silent, like a black curtain that shrouded every corner of the academy. The familiar place was now filled with a strange and cold feeling. Although Qiao Jin felt that it was strange, he was concerned about the poison in Yan Xiaoyi's body, so he directly snuck into the library. The second floor of the library could only be opened by the librarian. Just as Qiao Jin was thinking of a way to open the door to the second floor, he suddenly heard some movement coming from the library. It seemed like someone was talking and walking over. He could vaguely tell that it was the principal's voice. Qiao Jin was anxious. If the principal were to find out that a student had entered the academy during the holidays, it would be a violation of the academy's rules, and the student would be forcibly expelled from the academy. Who knows, the dean might even discover the secret of the devil class. Just at this moment, the brocade pouch that Yiqing Luo handed to him fell out. The door to the second floor of the library opened. He fell into the second floor of the library, and the door quietly closed. At the same time, it also blocked the sound coming from the first floor of the library. Qiao Jin stood up fearfully and quickly ran in the direction of the medicine refining room. However, there was not a single soul in the medicine refining room. The entire pill refinery was in a mess. It did not look like a place where people lived at all. On the wooden table filled with medicinal herbs, there was also a half-eaten meal. Qiao Jin picked up the food and sniffed it. It was already rancid. It had been here for at least 2 days. In other words, the ghost doctor would no longer be in the medicine refining room since the academy's holidays began. If they couldn't find the ghost doctor, what should they do with the poison in Xiaoyi's body? Qiao Jin was burning with anxiety. He put down the spoiled food and was just about to open the door of the refining room to leave. However, he heard the terrified screams of a young boy coming from outside. You lied to me," the youth roared. Faintly, a low sneer could be heard. That youth seemed to want to escape. His hurried footsteps rang out as he ran in the direction of the refining room. Qiao Jin's heart tightened as he scanned the surroundings, wanting to see where he could hide. The young man suddenly staggered and fell to the ground. The young man shouted in fear, "Dean, please let me go. My mother is still waiting for me at home. I don't want to enter the class of gods anymore. Please let me go home." Qiao Jin's body suddenly stiffened. Dean? Class of gods? This young lad was a student of the Heavenly Academy? What had the dean done to the academy's students? Just as he was thinking about it, he heard the youth let out a blood-curdling scream, and then there was no more sound. That student was dead? Qiao Jin felt a chill run down his spine. The dean killed a student of the academy? What was going on? Without waiting for Qiao Jin to digest this news, he heard the dean's voice again. "Lord Protector, the soul of this mystic profound 8th grade student has been extracted." After a moment of silence, Qiao Jin did not hear the voice of that so-called Lord Protector. The dean's obviously flattering voice rang out again, "Lord Protector, please rest assured. This time, I have prepared the souls of 4 students for the Lord." The souls of 4 students? Chapter 951. Her thoughts returned back to the meeting hall. Qiao Jin looked at Yiqing Luo with a grave expression. Director's action is simply too strange. Moreover, from the meaning of his words, it's not the first time Director had done this. Mystic profound 8th grade student. In the Heavenly Academy, this was considered to be above average, at least high profound class student. Director was actually willing to do it. And the other 4 students, who were they? When Yiqing Luo heard that, her slender brows creased slightly. Director is indeed doing some kind of deal with the dark forces. More accurately, Director seems to be fawning on the Lord of the Dark Forces. The last time at the library pavilion's 2nd story, she had already sensed Director's ambition. Dark forces. Which means to say, those student souls are wanted by the dark forces? Qiao Jin asked anxiously. Although their devil class was isolated from the world and had never interacted with other students. But after all, they were in the same academy and had stayed together for several years. If they really saw these innocent students' souls being taken away, they wouldn't even have the chance to reincarnate. They would still feel that it was too cruel. Dark forces kept on searching for cultivators, using profound yin qi to sign the soul contract with them, so they need the cultivator's soul. Yiqing Luo wasn't surprised about the students' souls being taken away. From the moment she found out about the soul contract, Yiqing Luo already had a guess. The Lord of the Dark Forces should need the cultivator's soul to achieve a certain goal, which was what Director and Guardian Eagle mentioned earlier. The Lord's big plan. Furthermore, the key point of that big plan should be related to her. Otherwise, the Dark Forces wouldn't keep sending people with profound yin qi to her side. The Dark Forces' target, other than her profound jade heart, was also her body. So, the Dark Forces placed their target on Heavenly Academy? Not only Qiao Jin was infuriated, the other brothers couldn't conceal the anger on their faces. Director actually made a deal with the Dark Forces, and even sent his own students to the Dark Forces. They had painstakingly tried to enter Heavenly Academy, and persisted just for this. This cruel and cold director? No wonder these students with poor aptitudes were all allocated to Devil class, and no one bothered about them. It was because the director totally didn't fancy them. Because their souls were unable to be offered to the Dark Forces Lord. I heard other students mention it when I was in the female dormitory. Every holiday in the academy, a few talented students would mysteriously disappear. I think their souls have been extracted and offered to the Dark Forces. Yiqing Luo recalled the female student's conversation the last time she was in the dormitory. He mentioned the disappearance of Su Rong from the High Profound class. He also mentioned that in the past few years, there would be students going missing during holidays. It would appear that this matter was not a rumor, but a fact. The meeting hall fell into silence once again. The mercenaries looked at each other, unable to understand the dean's actions. He had offered his student to the Dark Forces. Just how thick-skinned was he to be able to act as though nothing had happened and listen to the students calling him principal? Soul, suddenly, the man who had been hugging Yiqing Luo's slender waist muttered softly. That wet black hair scattered onto Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Yiqing Luo looked up. Ah Xian, have you thought of something? There were many things that these youths who had never been involved in the world might not understand. Chapter 952. I need a profound practitioner's soul. Dmo Xian rested his chin on his hand as he lazily leaned back on the soft chair. I have heard of the legend of needing a cultivator's soul. Everyone immediately congealed their senses and looked curiously at Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian deliberately whetted his appetite. Only when everyone's curiosity was piqued did he slowly say, I heard that there is a forbidden art that can remove all seals in the world by using the souls of 9,999 young profound practitioners. Seal? Yiqing Luo frowned. Could it be that the people from the Dark Forces were constantly searching for the souls of profound practitioners in order to undo the seal? Also, Dmo Xian suddenly paused and curled up a lock of hair on Yiqing Luo's shoulder as his voice gradually deepened. I've heard from the Imperial Palace that there was a great war 1,000 years ago. The Emperor of the Gods from the Upper Realm expelled the Dark Forces from the Nirvana Realm and sealed the King of Darkness in the darkness forever. Yiqing Luo's body suddenly stiffened. She stared into Dmo Xian's eyes and asked in a daze, King of Darkness? Is the Lord of the Dark Forces? Dmo Xian raised his brows and nodded slightly. If I didn't guess wrongly, this so-called Lord should be the King of Darkness. If the leader of the Dark Forces was the King of Darkness, he connected it to the Great War 1,000 years ago. That would explain everything. 9,999 profound practitioner souls, all for the sake of unsealing the King of Darkness. 1,000 years ago, only the divine emperors of the Upper Realm could expel them. It could be seen how powerful the Dark Forces were. We absolutely cannot let the King of Darkness seal be lifted. Yiqing Luo's brows were tightly knitted together. If the King of Darkness seal was removed, the dark forces would once again wreak havoc in the Nirvana world. The people from the upper realm could come down to the ordinary world to save them once. But that didn't mean he could save them a second time or a third time. Then, what should we do? The mercenaries looked at each other, not confident in themselves. After fighting with the people from the dark forces in the tomb of the Ling King, they could deeply feel the gap between them and the people from the dark forces. If not for Chi-Chi and the Blue Dragon's appearance, he was afraid that they would not be able to stand here alive. Stopping the King of Darkness from breaking the seal was easier said than done. The first step we need to take is to eliminate the King of Darkness and gather new profound practitioner souls. He had no idea how long the Dean had been working with the people from the dark forces. There was no way of knowing how many souls had gathered. Ju. It was easier said than done. The academy was the Dean's power. But they were students of the Devil class and were unable to get close to the other students to investigate the situation. Furthermore, the World Mercenary Group's reputation had already spread far and wide. If they were recognized in the academy, they would definitely be killed. The secret of the Devil class would also be exposed. Yiqing Luo muttered to herself for a moment and said calmly, "Get a copy of the background information of all the students in Heavenly Academy from Tao Zi and send it to me." Her gaze landed on Qiao Jin. Just as he was about to open his mouth and hand over the mission to him, suddenly, he thought of something and closed his eyes. "I'll go by myself later." Between Qiao Jin and Peach, it would be best to have as little contact as possible. Right now, the poison in Xiao Yi's body could not be controlled. Qiao Jin was a little confused, but he did not stupidly ask why. Chapter 953. The headquarters of the Dark Forces were not in the Nirvana realm. Protector Snake did not know where it was. This was because every time they came to the Nirvana realm from the headquarters or returned from the Nirvana realm, they would be transported back and forth through the Forbidden Blood summoning. The Dark Forces were also very large, with a total of more than 30,000 people. Moreover, every one of them had a high profound rank, and they were all good at using forbidden technique. The Dark Forces were also divided into different levels according to their abilities. Those with decent aptitude could join the Darkness Hall and become protectors or elders. Protectors were people who specialized in cultivating Xian Qi and raising their Xian grade. In modern terms, they were similar to warriors. The elders, on the other hand, specialized in all kinds of forbidden technique. Similar to mages, they could both attack and support. Every protector and elder was named after an animal. For example, Guardian Ing, Elder Xiong, and Guardian Snake. Moreover, there was no limit to the number of Guardian Elders. As long as one's ability reached the required level and passed the test of the Darkness Hall, they would be able to obtain the Dark Hall's Guardian Elder Medal. Wearing this emblem, in the Dark Forces, they would be loved and supported by ordinary people who couldn't pass the test of the Dark Hall. Above the Guardian Party and the Elder Party, below the Lord, which was also below the King of Darkness, they were the strongest group of 4 chosen from the Law Protector Party. They were collectively known as the 4 Great Saint Technique. The 4 strongest members of the Elders Association were collectively known as the 4 Great Saintesses. Seeing that everyone had more or less understood, Yiqing Luo asked everyone to have a good rest as they had to return to the academy tomorrow. Not only the director's matter, but also the bet which Yiqing Luo and Shangguan Liuli had set. For Yiqing Luo's sake, the brothers must recuperate well and train hard, striving to get first place in the interclass competition. Zhao Bo and the others couldn't interfere in the affairs of the academy, so they found an excuse to leave with their brothers. Mo Han Shang seemed to have thought of something as he called out to Zhao Bo, "When you and Lian Cheng went to the Mercenary Association, did the Blood Fiend Mercenary Group and Invincible Mercenary Group return?" Zhao Bo stopped in his tracks, shook his head, and immediately told him the data he had gathered. Currently, the mercenary groups that have completed their missions have a large number of low-level missions. However, only 153 mercenary groups had completed the intermediate and high-level missions. There are 30 high-level missions. Blood Demon Group and Invincible Group are not among the mercenary groups that completed high-level missions. Mo Han Shang's handsome face instantly revealed a smile as his clear eyes gazed towards Yi Qing Luo excitedly. This challenge, the World Group has won. This challenge would definitely belong to Yi Qing Luo. It was impossible for the Blood Demon Group and Invincible to complete the advanced rare quest. Furthermore, it's still a problem if these two groups will be able to return. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched, revealing a cold arc of ridicule. What do you mean? Mo Han Shang asked puzzledly. A cold intent flashed past Yi Qing Luo's eyes. Returning means that these two groups have already become the Dark Forces' tools. If they don't return, it means that these two regiments have already. He had been completely devoured by the Dark Forces. The Blood Demon Group and the Invincible Group must have made some sort of deal with Shangguan Liuli, which was why they had been targeting them ever since. Of course, they would borrow the power of the underworld to complete the high-level rare mission. Once it was done, it would be dead or alive. Chapter 954. Mo Han Shang's delicate brows creased slightly as he propped his chin, as though he was pondering over something. After some time, he suddenly stood up. This matter is not a small matter. Blood Demon Group and Invincible Battles are after all mercenary groups from the Mercenary Association. Our Mercenary Association must take responsibility for this. He had to inform his father about this matter as soon as possible. Yi Qing Luo didn't stop him. As the young patriarch of the Mercenary Association, there were many times when Mo Han Shang had to stand on the Mercenary Association's standpoint to look at everything. The crowd discussed for a while more before Yi Qing Luo asked everyone to go back to recuperate. Before they left, Yi Qing Luo took a look at the empty seat beside her as she sighed softly. Following that, she held on to Mo Xian's arm and left the meeting hall. Long Yunzhan, that fellow. He didn't even attend the World Group's meeting. He wanted to hide from everyone, but until when? Earlier in the meeting hall, although the mercenaries didn't mention a single word about Long Yunzhan. But she could still clearly see the gazes which the crowd shot towards the position beside her. Actually, no one blamed him. Only Long Yunzhan himself couldn't walk out. Yi Qing Luo sighed. If Long Yunzhan didn't want to appear, even if it was her, she probably wouldn't be able to find him. Thinking of that dragon? Her ear suddenly felt warm. The man's lips had unknowingly stuck onto her earlobe. Yi Qing Luo's petite body trembled as her cheeks blushed red as she pushed his chest away. She subconsciously looked around. Our brothers are still around, don't touch me. I'm touching my mouth. Mo Xian suppressed his voice as he gave an evil smile. Moreover, the relationship between us isn't a secret. Even if our brothers see it, that would be showing off our happiness to them. Preposterous logic. Yi Qing Luo's face flushed red as she raised her eyes and stared at him resentfully as she raised her little hand to slap his mouth. Stop fooling around, there are still many things to do. That dragon is a male dragon. Mo Xian caught her little hand on his thin lips, and when he spoke, not knowing if it was intentional or not, the tip of his tongue stuck out as it licked her palm. Yi Qing Luo felt ticklish and wanted to retract her hand. However, her small hand was held tightly by his big palm. Yi Qing Luo was so ashamed that she couldn't be bothered to struggle as she stared at him furiously. What nonsense are you thinking about? Ajahn and I are just friends. You treat him as a friend, but he might not necessarily treat you as a friend. Mo Xian's grip tightened. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly as a glint flashed past. Yi Qing Luo was slightly stunned as her slender brows creased slightly. What do you mean? What did Long Yunzhan not treat her as a friend? If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't treat her as a friend, Long Yunzhan might have been controlled by the mysterious Yin Qi to the point where he couldn't wake up. Along the way, she and Long Yunjian also had a revolutionary spirit. Staring at Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes for some time, the man retracted his gaze helplessly. Just as Yi Qing Luo was about to ask further, Dmo Xian's large palm covered her head. His broad palms covered her bangs and covered her eyes. "Stay here and rest. I'll look for him for you." Without waiting for Yi Qing Luo to speak, the warm palm had already left her forehead. When she opened her eyes, Dmo Xian's figure was nowhere to be seen. Only his unique sandalwood scent lingered in the air as it seeped into her nostrils. On her forehead, there seemed to be remnants of his warmth. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips as she retracted her gaze. This man. What on earth was he thinking all day long? Why did it feel as though he was jealous of Long Yunjian? Chapter 955. After Yi Qing Luo left the meeting hall, she didn't return to her room to rest. Instead, she went to God Thief's courtyard. She had just reached the entrance of God Thief's courtyard when she heard a clamorous noise coming from inside, as though they were arguing about something. Yi Qing Luo creased her slender brows in puzzlement. Although God Thief was a little unreliable, but no matter what, his temper was very good. Who was he arguing with? Yi Qing Luo walked into the courtyard and neared God Thief's room door. That door suddenly creaked open, and a man wrapped in a white robe fell out from the room. Coincidentally, he knocked onto Yi Qing Luo. Ouch, ouch, ouch. The person who bumped into her cried out a few times in pain. Why does it sound so familiar? Young lady, why are you here? God Thief's voice was heard from the room. Following that, she saw God Thief, who was dressed in a nouveau riche, jumping out from the room. On seeing that man dressed in a white robe, when he knocked onto Yi Qing Luo, a sliver of astonishment flashed past his eyes. Yi Qing Luo didn't manage to catch this slight astonishment. On a closer look, God Thief's expression was no different from usual. He directly stretched out his hand and grabbed hold of that man who knocked onto Yi Qing Luo, not forgetting to smile at her. Young lady, wait a minute, I'll talk to you after I settle this old man. Saying that, he dragged that man as he walked into the room. That golden and dazzling wide-sleeve robe, which was embroidered with gold ingots, covered that white-robed man's face. Yi Qing Luo stared at their backs as they walked into the room, and the more she looked, the more familiar she felt. She walked up in quick steps and stretched out her hand to grab hold of that man. Wait a minute, with this tug, that man's face was completely revealed in front of Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo was first stunned as she cried out in shock. Ghost Doctor Master? This man was actually Ghost Doctor? Why was he here? Furthermore, and he seemed to be especially familiar with God Thief? Why are you here? Yi Qing Luo's curious gaze wavered between Ghost Doctor and God Thief. Ghost Doctor scratched God Thief's messy hair and tidied up his clothes as he coughed a few times. Why am I here, cough you ask him. Saying that, he shifted his gaze towards God Thief. Holy Pirate, who had been called out, broke out in a cold sweat. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's gaze really following closely behind, God Thief wiped his forehead. He's here. Because he's the Ghost Doctor. I'm asking him to help Xiao Yi detoxify the poison, and we're talking about the remuneration. He suddenly clapped his hands and said, Yes, we were discussing the matter of payment, but he didn't agree to cure Xiao Yi. Little girl, you came just in time. God Thief stretched out his hand and directly held onto Yi Qing Luo's shoulder, bringing her towards Ghost Doctor's side. You call him master, right? This is your master. You should persuade him to cure Xiao Yi's poison. Ghost Doctor's face was cold. His malicious eyes glared at Holy Pirate. But when he saw Yi Qing Luo walking closer to him, he could only temporarily restrain the ruthlessness in his eyes. Little girl Luo. Master Ghost Doctor, I indeed wanted to look for you. When Yi Qing Luo saw Ghost Doctor, her mind was filled with Xiao Yi could be saved. She was not in the mood to care about the Ghost Doctor atmosphere between Holy Thief and the Ghost Doctor. He was not in the mood to expose the lame excuse that the God Thief thought of. although she hadn't interacted with Ghost Doctor for a long time, but Yiqing Luo was still very clear. Ghost Doctor was totally not interested in the things within the remuneration. Between them, they should be old friends. Yiqing Luo didn't think in detail as she hooked onto Ghost Doctor's arm. My brother has been poisoned by the purple poppy grass. I don't have the purple millet grass on me, and her body. Chapter 956. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. I know. The poison in her body, I can't cure it. Ghost Doctor frowned slightly, revealing some impatience. I don't have that antidote. What poison is she suffering from? Even Ghost Doctor didn't have that antidote? Other than refining medicine, the Ghost Doctor didn't have the slightest bit of interest in anything else. By right, Ghost Doctor should have all kinds of medicinal herbs on him. How could there be any medicinal herbs that he didn't have? Ghost Doctor lifted his eyelids, looking at Yiqing Luo's pale face. He calmly spat out 5 words, Darkness 3 Evil Flower. Darkness 3 Evil Flower? Yiqing Luo's body stiffened. What Shangguan Liuli said was indeed right. In Yen Xiaoyi's body, it wasn't just the purple poppy grass's poison. There was also the Dark Force's special medicinal powder. Darkness 3 Evil Flower Antidote, what is it? Yiqing Luo's lips were dry, as she opened her mouth with great difficulty, asking. She had never heard of this poison. But, from Ghost Doctor's expression, she knew that this poison wasn't easy to cure. Moreover, the antidote for Darkness 3 Evil Flowers poison. Could it only be found on the Dark Force's side? So Ghost Doctor didn't have this antidote on him. Darkness and light are antagonistic, so the antidote for Darkness 3 Evil Flower must be refined using the Light Spirit Immortal Grass, together with other light medicinal herbs. Towards Yiqing Luo's mention of medicinal herbs, Ghost Doctor explained very clearly. But the Light Spirit Immortal Grass can't be bought in any large medicine shop. There are only 2 stalks of Light Spirit Immortal Grass left in Nirvana Realm, and they are in the Alchemist Guild. Alchemist Guild? Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. Alchemist Guild. Perhaps. She fished out a token and passed it to Ghost Doctor. I have the Alchemist Guild's pass. Can I see the Alchemist Guild's chief? If it was the Alchemist Guild, there might be a sliver of hope. Mu Zifan was the Alchemist Guild's young chief. You and the Alchemist Guild. The Ghost Doctor furrowed her white brows and stared at the token for a long time, then hid the deep meaning in her eyes. If you can obtain the Light Spirit Immortal Herb, I'll help you refine the antidote for the Darkness 3 Demon Flower. Yiqing Luo didn't ponder over Ghost Doctor's reaction. She rushed up and gave the Ghost Doctor a big hug, smiling like a flower. Sure Fu, thank you. The Ghost Doctor's tightly knitted white brows deepened. His stiff body was obviously not used to someone being so close to him. But when his malicious gaze swept past the smile on Yiqing Luo's face, his body stiffened, allowing Yiqing Luo to hug him. She acted coquettishly and acted cute, praising the Ghost Doctor to the skies. Only then did she wave her handkerchief and quickly leave to find Mu Zifei and inquire about Mu Zifan's whereabout. Staring at Yiqing Luo's departing back view, Ghost Doctor was still maintaining the bear hug position as he stood frozen on the spot. What are you looking at? After being hugged by my little student, did your soul leave your body? Holy Pirate coldly glanced at him. He put on a fake smile and mocked him. Ghost Doctor stiffly moved his body, as he turned his head and glanced coldly at Holy Pirate as he scoffed. Lass Luo is very smart, you'd better think of how to explain to her the reason why I'm here. Isn't it because of Xiao Yi, that child, that I casually grabbed the number 1 Ghost Doctor to detoxify? Holy Pirate replied sloppily, as he touched his shiny hair as he walked into the house. In future, don't look for me if there's nothing. Ghost Doctor stood at the door as his white brows creased tightly, as his expression sunk. Holy Pirate didn't force him to stay as he waved his hand. If I knew that Lass's words were so useful, I wouldn't have looked for you. Chapter 957. Pristine Elixir Medicine Hall. Cabinet bedroom. A red figure flew over like a gust of wind. The patrolling guards didn't have time to react before they saw the red figure directly rush into the bedroom. Fei. A clear and sweet voice sounded. The figure stood still in the bedroom and looked around. Finally, her gaze fell on the youngster in the middle of the room. A pair of bright eyes flashed a trace of astonishment. Qing Luo, what's wrong? The youngster raised his head and saw her appearance. His lips slightly hooked, revealing a smile. Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. Mu Zifei was currently supporting himself with one hand on the table. There was an account book and ink on the table. His slender fingers were holding a page of the account book. An old man dressed in a doctor's robe was standing behind him, bandaging his wound. Most importantly, Mu Zifei's upper body was completely naked. Tight muscles, smooth lines. It was the body of a healthy youngster. The injury isn't serious. Qing Luo slowly walked over and stared at the scarlet wound on his back. There were several places where the skin was cut by a sharp weapon, and the bone was visible. Qing Luo saw the wound and her slender brows immediately knitted into a ball. It's nothing. Mu Zifei shook his head, put down the account book and waved his hand. The doctor tied the bandages, covered his back with his coat and retreated. He stood up, his long robe falling down like a waterfall. He didn't tighten his pocket, revealing his chest muscles. However, Qing Luo's expression didn't change as she stared straight at him. I'm sorry. Under her gaze, Mu Zifei instead felt shy. He raised his arm and wrapped his coat tightly when he heard her apology. Mu Zifei's hand paused. What apology? If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have been injured. When Mu Zifei heard this, he chuckled. He quickly fastened his belt and shook his head. How can I blame you? Joining a mercenary group and going on a mercenary group mission is in itself a dangerous thing. I'm a man, encountering a bit of danger is a chance for me to grow. Why are you apologizing? Mu Zifei waved his hand indifferently. Qing Luo pursed her pink lips. I will protect you in the future. Mu Zifan handed her over to him. She came back with such a heavy injury on her first mission. She was ashamed of Mu Zifan's trust and the Mu brothers' gentleness. Qing Luo. Mu Zifei suddenly raised his arm and placed it on her shoulders, frowning. How can a man like me let a little girl protect him? Don't feel guilty towards me. I know better than you what a mercenary group is. Since I've chosen to join, I've joined with the intention to become stronger and grow. People in the underworld would always encounter accident. Why are you looking for me? Why are you in such a hurry? Seeing that Qing Luo was still looking down, Mu Zifei could only change the topic. Qing Luo, Mu Zi Luo's god. You're looking for my brother? Mu Zifei raised his eyebrows in curiosity. Qing Luo nodded. I want to ask him, what are the conditions to obtain the Light Spirit Immortal Grass from the Alchemist Guild? Light Spirit Immortal Grass? Mu Zifei muttered and repeated. What do you want the Spirit Immortal Grass for? The poison in Jie Xiaoyi's body. Qing Luo didn't hide anything. The poison in Xiao Yi's body has already started to spread and I urgently need the Light Spirit Immortal Grass. Can you bring me to look for Zifan? Chapter 958. What? Qing Luo immediately perked up as she looked at Mu Zifei. He smiled. Have you forgotten what I mentioned to you on the day of the holidays? Mentioned on the day of the holidays? Qing Luo thought for a moment. You're talking about the alchemist competition? Yes. Mu Zifei's thin lips rose as he raised his brows. Aren't you going to take part in the alchemist competition? If you're able to stand out in the competition and win the championship, you'll be able to get quite a number of rare medicinal herbs and the Light Spirit Immortal Grass is one of the prizes. Qing Luo's eyes lit up. Is what you said true? Why would I lie to you? I know you're going to take part in the alchemist competition, so I specially asked around for you. The prize for winning the championship this time is indeed a Light Spirit Immortal Grass. Mu Zifei's words ignited Yi Qing Luo's hope. Originally, she thought she had to make a deal with the Alchemist Guild's chief before she could exchange for the Light Spirit Immortal Grass. If she could get the Light Spirit Immortal Grass by winning the championship, she absolutely had to go all out. If it was said that the reason why she agreed to the alchemist competition was because of the Mu brothers' invitation, she didn't want to brush them off, so she agreed to it. Then, her motive was even clearer now. Which day is the alchemist competition set for? Yi Qing Luo asked anxiously. The poison in Yan Xiaoyi's body couldn't wait for too long. It's 5 days later and the competition duration is 2 days. Mu Zifei replied. 5 days later. 2 days of competition. Which was 7 days. 7 days. Yan Xiaoyi probably couldn't wait. Mu Zifei saw through Yi Qing Luo's worries. Later my brother will make a trip to the old residence to help suppress the poison in Xiaoyi's body, and she will definitely be able to last till you win the championship. Thank you. Yi Qing Luo looked at him gratefully. It seemed that ever since she got to know the Mu brothers, it had always been the Mu brothers who helped her. She owed this pair of brothers more and more. You're the most seriously injured today. Quickly go back to the old residence to rest. Tomorrow you have to go to the academy. Mu Zifei comforted her with a smile. Are the world groups battle today? I'm afraid our name will spread throughout the entire West continent and even Nirvana realm. Tomorrow when we go to the academy, we probably won't be in peace. Yi Qing Luo could imagine. The fact that she possessed the blue dragon and the white tiger, as well as the divine artifacts that all the forces wanted, must have spread, along with the news that the dark forces had invaded the Nirvana realm. Indeed, there was no peace for her. However, this was the path she had chosen for herself. Even if there was no peace, she had to continue down this path. At the very least, the other powerhouses would have to reconsider if they wanted to deal with the world group. When he returned to the old house, he found that the youths were all extremely quiet. Yi Qing Luo felt strange as she followed the crowd's weird gaze and walked step by step to the front hall. 20 youths were surrounding one person while Dmo Xian stood by the side with his arms crossed over his chest. Hearing someone call out, "Vice Captain," the 20 or so people immediately dispersed. A tall figure came into Yi Qing Luo's sight. That pair of azure blue eyes stared blankly at Yi Qing Luo for some time, and after regaining his senses, his eyes immediately shifted away unnaturally. It was Long Yunzhan. He was forcefully brought back by Dmo Xian. He didn't dare to look her in the eye. Was he still feeling guilty? Yi Qing Luo lifted her feet and walked towards Long Yunzhan. She could clearly hear those 20 youngsters beside her drawing in cold breaths. They were worried that she would blame Long Yunzhan because of this? That was true. Chapter 959. Yi Qing Luo walked to the front of Long Yunzhan as she slowly raised her head. He still didn't dare to meet her eyes. Yi Qing Luo didn't force him. The one whose emotions were the most messed up should be him. The one who was under the most pressure was also him. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled slightly as she stretched out her hand to hold his arm. "Ah Jean, it's good that you're back." Her voice was gentle with a tinge of relief. It was good that he was back. None of them would blame him. If he really felt guilty, then stay by everyone's side and accompany them. This was the real way to make it up to everyone. Long Yunzhan's eyes flickered slightly. Following that, his gaze slowly met with Yi Qing Luo, as though he was slightly astonished. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she let go of Long Yunzhan's arm. As usual, she smiled and said, all right, disperse, disperse." Following that, she patted Long Yunzhan's arm. "Xiao Yi is in her room, she should be awake by now." Saying that, Yi Qing Luo walked towards Dmo Xian and together with him, they walked towards the direction of their own courtyard. Long Yunzhan was willing to come back, willing to appear in front of the brothers. That was enough. Now it was time for him to ponder on his own, or to face Yan Xiaoyi alone. The next day, early in the morning, the youngsters in the old mansion had mostly dispersed. All of them had already left for the academy. Yiqing Luo didn't accompany anyone as she swaggered towards the academy's main entrance alone. As expected, the minute she appeared, she instantly became everyone's focus. Everyone's gazes were glued onto Yiqing Luo. Their discussions were all about those rumors which they heard yesterday, as they tried to guess the authenticity of the rumors. Perhaps it was the deterrent effect of the rumors. Although they were discussing, no one dared to step forward to ask. When Yiqing Luo neared, they subconsciously opened up a path. When she passed by the courtyard's entrance, the masters who were in charge of maintaining order stopped on her for a while longer. "Qing Luo." A clear voice was heard from behind. Yiqing Luo halted her footsteps and turned back to see Lu Xiaoyu, who was carrying bags of all sizes, and her hands were hooked onto 3 parcels, stumbling as she jogged towards her. As she neared, Yiqing Luo could smell the aroma of pastries and meals. This little glutton. Why did he bring so many things to the academy after the holidays? Was he afraid that he would starve to death? Yiqing Luo helplessly face-bombed and walked towards Lu Xiaoyu. He took down the 4 bags hanging from her neck and held them in his hands. "There's a canteen in the academy. You can just bring some snacks from home to the academy. Why bring so many things? My mother's culinary skills are very good. I want to bring it for you to have a taste." Lu Xiaoyu smiled coquettishly as she rubbed her face on Yiqing Luo's shoulder, acting coquettishly. Yiqing Luo smiled lightly. "I can go over to your place to have a taste during the next holiday. There's no need to go through so much trouble." Lu Xiaoyu's dark eyes were sparkling. She tilted her head and looked at her. "During the holidays, you have to do the mercenary group's missions." At the mention of the mercenary group, Lu Xiaoyu's eyes lit up. "Qing Luo, I've heard about it. The world group that you've established is really amazing." As soon as he said that, the surrounding students who were staring at the two of them all perked up their ears. No one dared to ask about the truth of the rumor. Since someone dared to mention it, they instantly raised their attention by 120%. "If you want to, you can join anytime." Yiqing Luo rubbed her hair as the two of them walked towards the academy. Chapter 960. Lu Xiaoyu pouted her lips as she shook her head. "I'd better not go. When my ability is strong enough to help you, then I'll join." She knew her own limitations. If she were to join the World Mercenary Group now and follow Yiqing Luo to complete missions, she would only become Yiqing Luo's burden. She didn't want to drag Yiqing Luo down. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards but didn't reply. Her peripheral vision swept past the group of students who had pricked up their ears to listen to their conversation, as her eyes overflowed with a ridiculing smile. She was lamenting in her heart. Indeed, the strong were revered. She had the ability, but these students didn't even dare to fart. If it was during normal times, even if she and the cold-faced instructor came to a draw, there was still hope to enter the class of gods. When these students saw her, they didn't give her any respect or admiration. They were still cold and full of ridicule. However, now. But no one dared to get close to her, because her power was not only in the academy. In the pugilistic world, her reputation had already spread out. Those strong practitioners from various forces had to welcome Yiqing Luo with a smiling face, not to mention these students. "Qing Luo, I heard." Lu Xiaoyu suppressed her voice as she leaned towards Yiqing Luo's ear and asked in a low voice, "You have a blue dragon battle pet and one of the 4 sacred beasts, white tiger. Is it an exaggeration or is it true?" This question, ever since she heard the rumors, she had been suppressing it till now. She wasn't interested in divine relic or whatever. But towards battle pets, she had a huge interest. Yiqing Luo had yet to reply when she heard those students who were following closely by her side, getting closer and closer. These students, their profound grade innate talents weren't bad. Their hearing was naturally different from ordinary people. Although Lu Xiaoyu's voice was suppressed to an extremely low level, but their ears were sharp and could still hear it. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as she retracted her gaze from those students. Her lips curled upwards as her voice wasn't low nor loud, as though she was having a casual chat. Yes, next time there's a chance, I'll let you meet them. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes lit up as she shouted, "Long live Yiqing Luo." The hearts of the surrounding students trembled. Yiqing Luo, she really had a blue dragon and white tiger. The rumors were true. Yiqing Luo helped Lu Xiaoyu to carry the bag back to the dormitory and had just placed the things down when she saw a group of gorgeously dressed female students rushing towards the entrance with a fawning smile on their faces. "Student Yi, we haven't seen you for 3 days, we really missed you." A female student rushed forward as though they were very familiar with each other, stretching out her hand in an attempt to hold on to Yiqing Luo's arm. "Student Yi, we brought quite a number of little toys from home and it's rather rare. Do you want to come over and take a look?" "Who are you?" Yiqing Luo frowned as she avoided his outstretched hand. The female student did not feel awkward at all. "I am a student from the Intermediate Profound Class 1, and also one of the 3 biggest jade shops in Three Springs City, the Yu family's 3rd little brat." Before he could finish his words, Yiqing Luo raised her hand to stop him. "I'm not interested to know who you are, move aside. Student Yi, we are all members of your loyal escort group. We worship you very much." That's right. Student Yi, Goddess Yi." Various kinds of flattering voices made Yiqing Luo's brows crease tightly. He thought it was because of the power of the rumor. Yesterday, he was still worried that it wouldn't happen. He had not expected. It was quiet all the way back to the academy. When he returned to the dormitory, he was pestered instead. Chapter 961. The moment this voice was heard, the entire dormitory fell into silence. Those 5 female students instantly turned their heads and shouted respectfully towards the door. "Vice President." They saw Lu Shuiyu standing at the door with a frosty expression. That icy cold face was expressionless, as though there wasn't any emotion on it. Her icy cold gaze stared at Yiqing Luo as she scoffed. "You still know that I'm your vice president?" The female student's body trembled as she lowered her head. "You're here in the academy to learn and to become stronger, not to climb up the social ladder, trying to please this and that." Lu Shuiyu's tone couldn't conceal the disgust. Of course, the target of this disgust was only Yiqing Luo alone. Lu Xiaoyu rushed up as she placed her hands on her waist and stood in front of Lu Shuiyu as she gave a light harumph. "You make it sound as though you didn't intentionally try to please anyone or flatter anyone." "I have a clear conscience." Lu Shuiyu looked at Yiqing Luo in disdain. "I'm not as hypocritical as some people, just having a little bit of good luck, and you insist on making it known to everyone, making everyone flatter her." The "some people," in her words, who she was referring to, was too obvious. Lu Xiaoyu was so angry that her face flushed red as she fiercely spat at her. "Don't say that you didn't intentionally try to please the president, you didn't flatter the president." An elder Yunxiang sighed. "I've seen quite a number of you trying to please them." Lu Shuiyu's throat choked as her face flushed red, not being able to say a single word of rebuttal. But Lu Xiaoyu persisted in her infuriating character as she stuck out her tongue and continued, "Don't make it sound as though everyone is the same as you, loving to be flattered. My Qing Luo likes peace and quiet the most. My Qing Luo doesn't like these people who pester her." Following that, she imitated Lu Shuiyu's earlier tone as she sneered. "My Qing Luo isn't like some people, putting on the vice president's airs all the time, as though afraid that the other students don't know that someone is the vice president." "You? Lu Xiaoyu?" Lu Shuiyu was so angry that her face, which had always been frozen, suddenly cracked. But in a blink of an eye, Lu Shuiyu was already right in front of Lu Xiaoyu as she raised her hand and gave a tight slap towards Lu Xiaoyu's face. "You've been poked in your sore spot and now you're desperate?" A slender jade-like hand grasped Lu Shuiyu's wrist, and a cold voice sounded in her ear. "You dare to touch my people in front of me. It seems that the vice president has lived a peaceful life for too long, so you want to play something exciting." His 5 fingers suddenly tightened their grip. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. Lu Shuiyu's ice-cold face suddenly turned pale and cold sweat broke out. The feeling of 5 fingers directly passing through her skin and stabbing into the depths of her bones was simply excruciating. But Lu Shuiyu refused to admit defeat in front of Yiqing Luo. He didn't want to make a sound as he endured the pain in his arm. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her vision swept past those terrified and uneasy female students who were standing by the side. He remembered. Weren't these the female students who had been pestering and flattering Lu Shuiyu? When she first came to the dormitory, these students even deliberately caused trouble for her. It was no wonder that Lu Shuiyu was being sarcastic. She sneered as her vision slowly fell onto Lu Shuiyu's pale face, which was enduring silently. Seeing the vicious sneer on Lu Shuiyu's lips, Yiqing Luo's lips twitched coldly. His 5 fingers tightened his grip once again. A few pushing waves and a few cracking sounds were heard. Chapter 962. Lu Shuiyu was flung aside as she staggered backwards several steps. Those few female students subconsciously supported her. Lu Shuiyu's right arm hung limply, and the moment she moved slightly, she felt a piercing pain. Her face, which had turned pale from the pain, surfaced a cold smile. Yiqing Luo, your unhappiness is about to come. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she didn't think much of it. Oh? Really? Then touch your hand and see. Who's the one who's going to be unhappy? Lu Shuiyu's smile froze as she stretched out her hand to touch her arm. The moment she touched it, it was a piercing pain. She bore with it as her 5 fingers clasped onto the joints of her arm. It wasn't broken. Moreover, she couldn't feel any signs of injury, as though the crack sound earlier was just an illusion. But her hand was still in pain. The pain was unbearable. You? What did you do to me? Lu Shuiyu's aloof face was filled with viciousness. I didn't do anything. You and I are both women, so what can I do to you? Yiqing Luo's words, which were filled with hidden meanings, floated out casually. Those 5 female students understood the hidden meaning in her words as their faces flushed red. Lu Shuiyu's face turned green and red as she gritted her teeth and stared at the people behind her, still not supporting me to leave. She didn't believe that her arm was completely fine. The students took a look at Lu Shuiyu and in the end, under Lu Shuiyu's authority, they supported her to leave. Before they left, Lu Shuiyu's chilly voice came out from the slits of her teeth. Yiqing Luo, you won't be so lucky forever. Looking at Lu Shuiyu, who was like a defeated rooster as she left dejectedly, Lu Xiaoyu laughed out unkindly. Qing Luo, did you see her expression? She looked as though she was covered with a pile of sh*t. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. From the moment she decided to place the world group in front of everyone, deciding to shine brightly, she had no intention of enduring silently. Since Lu Shuiyu insisted on bumping into the gun, she naturally wouldn't miss this chance. After all, Lu Shuiyu was the faculty council's vice president. The news of him injuring Lu Shuiyu would soon spread throughout the academy. But Lu Xiaoyu smiled and suddenly thought of something. Her face darkened. If this matter is spread out and Lu Shuiyu wants to hold you responsible, wouldn't you be breaking the rules? Yiqing Luo gave an elegant smile as she didn't mind. Before you pursue responsibility, you have to produce evidence. Lu Shuiyu endured the pain in her arm. She didn't want to lose face as the vice president in front of the female students. There was another purpose. That was to make use of this matter to accuse Yiqing Luo of harming her classmates. How would Yiqing Luo give Lu Shuiyu this chance? You want to pursue the matter? Bring out the evidence. Lu Xiaoyu blinked her bright eyes as if she had understood something. Lu Shuiyu's arm will continue to hurt for 2 to 3 days, but I can't find anything wrong with it. Lu Xiaoyu doubled over in laughter. This move was simply too despicable. However, it was really satisfying. As expected, within 1 hour, the matter of Yiqing Luo and Lu Shuiyu's conflict had spread throughout the entire courtyard. But unfortunately, There wasn't any problem with Lu Shuiyu's arm. Yun Xiang had always stood on Lu Shuiyu's side, and when he heard about this, he naturally checked on it secretly. But the 5 students present were all vague about it. Chapter 963. Since the student had already said so, Lu Shuiyu was destined to swallow this loss forcefully. Just as Lu Shuiyu was thinking of ways to take revenge on Yiqing Luo. But there was news of Yiqing Luo being invited by the young chief of the Alchemist Guild to attend the alchemist competition. This news was not publicized by the academy. The director would naturally not reject the personal invitation from the young chief of the Alchemist Guild. He only sent Yun Xiang to negotiate with Yiqing Luo and confirmed that she would report to the Alchemist Guild tomorrow. Lu Shuiyu got the news from Yun Xiang. Faculty Council, deep in the secret passage. Lu Shuiyu walked briskly. The expression on her face was different from the usual frosty look. There was a hint of joy. She pushed the door open and saw the green-robed man who was bending over the table to read the documents. The warmth in her eyes grew thicker. Her lips were also tainted with a smile. She slowly walked forward and said in a soft voice, "President, I am here." Yen Mu slowly raised his head. His gentle eyes gazed at Lu Shuiyu elegantly. After a while, his gaze fell on her obviously unnatural arm which was hanging by her side. "Arm, is it still not healed?" "No, nothing." The gentle voice made Lu Shuiyu's heart tremble. That concerned tone made her want to sink into this gentleness. Yen Mu slowly stood up. His green and white uniform was like a wave, rolling and sliding down. It made that gentle and elegant handsome face look even more refined. He walked closer to Lu Shuiyu and held her injured arm. "It has been 2 days, still not healed?" A strong masculine scent sprayed into her nose. Lu Shuiyu's icy cold face had long been dyed red. She stared at the man in front of her in a daze, staring at his gentle eyes. His touch made Lu Shuiyu's delicate body tremble slightly. Immediately, a burst of pain came from her right arm. But Lu Shuiyu seemed to feel nothing. She just stared at Yen Mu in a daze. As long as Yen Mu was this gentle to her, even if it took her life, she would gladly endure it. "All right." Yen Mu let go of her hand and slowly walked back to the wooden table. That scorching temperature suddenly disappeared. Lu Shuiyu opened her mouth and wanted to stop Yen Mu. But looking at his watery smile, she couldn't take the initiative to speak. Her right arm was fixed by Yen Mu. However, she felt a heavy sense of loss in her heart because of his approach and departure. "Tell me, what did you find out?" Yen Mu did not seem to notice the affection in her eyes. He just lowered his head and continued to stare at the documents on the table. Lu Shuiyu regained her senses and immediately put on a stern look. "I heard from Elder Yun Xiang that Yiqing Luo will leave the academy tomorrow and head over to the Alchemist Guild." Yen Mu did not like women who mixed public and private affairs. So, when it came to matters of duty, she would try her best to suppress her feelings towards Yen Mu and be his most important and capable assistant. Yen Mu raised his eyelids. "You are leaving the school tomorrow?" "Yes, the alchemist competition will last for 2 days. You must arrive at the Alchemist Union 1 day in advance to obtain the competition qualification certificate." Lu Shuiyu didn't know what was the purpose of Yen Mu asking her to find out about Yiqing Luo's whereabouts. But she would obey Yen Mu's orders unconditionally. Chapter 964. "President, is there a problem?" Lu Shuiyu asked puzzledly when she heard Yen Mu's low murmur. Yen Mu chuckled softly, like the spring breeze caressing the face and blooming flowers. "No problem, just a little surprised. Classmate Yi is indeed a legendary student." Lu Shuiyu's face stiffened. Hearing Yen Mu's praise of Yiqing Luo, it made her very uncomfortable. To be able to get the artifact, subdue the supreme dragon, and one of the 4 sacred beasts, the white tiger, and also know the art of alchemy, if she could join the faculty council, it would definitely be beneficial to the development of the faculty council. Yen Mu's smile grew wider, as if mentioning Yiqing Luo's name made him very happy. This smile, however, made Lu Shuiyu's heart dull pain. She did not want Yen Mu to show the slightest affection and appreciation to any woman. Yen Mu belonged to her. He belonged to her alone. All right, you can leave first. Yen Mu's slender fingers gently brushed his thin lips, revealing a meaningful smile. Immediately, he dismissed Lu Shuiyu. Lu Shuiyu was stunned, the blood in her body seemed to solidify. A woman's intuition told her that Yen Mu was interested in Yiqing Luo. No. She would not allow anyone to touch her president. Lu Shuiyu clenched her fists, but her face was expressionless as she bowed and turned to leave. When Lu Shuiyu's figure left the room, Yen Mu, who had a gentle smile on his face, was no longer smiling. What replaced it was an extremely strong hostility. That gentle face emerged a few traces of murderous intent. He got up and bowed respectfully to somewhere behind him. Lord Holy Technique, Yiqing Luo will set off tomorrow to the Alchemist Guild. The next day, while the students were in class, Yunxiang sent Yiqing Luo out of the Heavenly Academy. The Mu brothers were waiting at the door. When they saw Yiqing Luo coming out, they came forward. 2 horses and a carriage. These two were very considerate. Yunxiang sent Yiqing Luo out of the Heavenly Academy, completed the task and left without looking back. Are you ready? Mu Zifan looked at her. He didn't sense any alchemy equipment on her body. Yiqing Luo smiled. There's no need to specially prepare anything. Isn't an alchemist's competition particular about fairness? I believe you all wouldn't allow alchemists to bring along their own cauldrons to compete, right? Mu Zifan laughed out loud. So you know the rules. It is indeed so. The alchemists participating in the competition must use the medicinal cauldrons prepared by the Alchemy Union. That was a given. If an alchemist was allowed to have their own medicine cauldron, it would be unfair to many alchemists. Of course, the success rate of alchemy was closely related to the medicinal cauldron. Mu Zifan handed over a package in his hand. These are some pastries. If you get hungry on the road, you can eat them to fill your stomach. The minute Yiqing Luo received it, she smelled the fragrance of the pastries. She smiled. Thank you. Let's go. If we don't hurry, it won't be good if we're late. Mu Zifei urged, lifting the curtain. If there's anything, we can talk on the road. It was indeed getting late. From the Heavenly Academy to the Alchemy Union, it would take at least 12 to 14 hours of journey. Once they arrived at the Alchemy Union, they still had to collect the qualification certificate. Yiqing Luo turned her head and took a look at the magnificent, palace-like academy. In her mind, there seemed to be an image of a man dressed in a purple robe, with peerless elegance. Knowing that she was leaving the academy today, he still didn't rush back? Or was he so busy that he didn't know that she was leaving the academy today? After a long while, she slowly retracted her gaze and turned back with a slight sense of loss. Chapter 965. Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. A low, husky voice floated down from above her head. Why, waiting anxiously, who are you waiting for? The familiar sandalwood fragrance seeped into her nose. The man's warm embrace made a certain part of her heart feel as if it had been stabbed by a deep evil thing. Ah Xian! He was really here. I'm waiting for you. Yiqing Luo replied honestly without any shyness. The arms around her waist tightened. The man's low, husky voice, because of the young lady's honest words, had a gentle expression and joy in his eyes. Not willing to leave me for even a moment? Yiqing Luo turned around and her petite body went into his arms. Her eyes were crystal clear without any impurities. Amen. Ever since the holidays ended and she came to Heavenly Academy, this man had left without saying goodbye. Yiqing Luo knew that his imperial palace's matters had not been settled. He rushed over to King Ling's tomb because he sensed that she was in danger. Especially now that the dark forces had invaded Nirvana realm. He needed the first imperial palace to step in. She suppressed the urge to meet Dmo Xian. Diamo Xian had his own matters to attend to. She had said it before. Diamo Xian could not possibly stay by her side. She was very clear about this point. So during this period of time, she had put all her heart into the pill refining room, following Ghost Doctor to continue learning pill refining skills. Right now, the most important thing was not romance, but to cure Xiao Yi of the poison. She had to get first place in the alchemist competition. Because of this, a total of 4 days. She had not even met Diamo Xian once. In the end, he still came. She hugged his waist, absorbing his unique aura. Yiqing Luo felt a sense of satisfaction, flowing from the bottom of her heart. You have plenty of time to be mushy on the way, now get on the carriage. Mu Zifei's teasing voice was heard from behind. Yiqing Luo suddenly opened her eyes and raised her head from Diamo Xian's arms. Seeing Diamo Xian, she had forgotten where she was and what she was going to do. Seeing Mu Zifei winking at her, Yiqing Luo's face flushed red instantly. She abruptly pushed Diamo Xian's chest, lifted the curtains and squeezed in. Outside the carriage, Mu Zifei's laughter was heard. Diamo Xian's lips curled slightly, as his eyes were filled with unconcealable gentleness. The purple robe was like a cloud, sweeping past the eyes of the Mu brothers. A mellow voice floated into the ears of the Mu brothers. "Thank you for taking care of little Luo." The Mu brothers were stunned. Regaining his senses, Diamo Xian had already entered the carriage in a flash. If an ordinary person were to express his gratitude, it might not even be worth mentioning. But if it was placed on Diamo Xian, the Overlord, the significance of that was extraordinary. Who was Dizun? The palace lord of the number 1 imperial palace, a man who was known as a legend. High and mighty, incomparably noble. Even if the Alchemist Guild's alliance chief personally invited Diamo Xian might not give face to the alliance chief. But this man did it for a woman. Thank them. This also indicated that Diamo Xian had already remembered them from the bottom of his heart. He would definitely repay them at the right time. It could be seen that Diamo Xian treated Yiqing Luo sincerely. Moreover, their love was extremely deep. The night was deep. The Mu brothers stopped their horses and prepared to rest for a while in this forest. The 2 horses were tired after running for a day. Moreover, Yiqing Luo was a woman after all. After being jolted on the carriage for such a long time, it was indeed time for her to rest. They hunted some wild game and ate some pastries. Chapter 966. Perhaps it was because she was worried about Yan Xiaoyi, even in the carriage, nestled in Diamo Xian's arms, she didn't feel sleepy at all. She then quietly got up and exited the carriage. She replaced Mu Zifan on night watch. After pushing for a while, seeing Yiqing Luo's insistence, he said that he would wake up 2 hours later to continue night watch. Yiqing Luo waved her hand as she flipped over and leapt onto a thick and sturdy tree. Sitting against the wind, she gazed at the bright moon in the sky. In her mind, everything that had happened recently was rearranged from the beginning to the end. She was also sorting out the dark forces and the motive of that King of Darkness. She was also guessing how many people around her had already been controlled by the dark forces. After thinking about it, she had no clue at all. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as her ears twitched, as though she heard something. Her eyes, which were fixated on the bright moon, flashed a chilly intent. Her fingers moved and the glower flame fan entered her palm. At this moment, her figure was as light as a feather, as she leapt down from the big tree. She shot a glance at the both of them who were resting. In order not to disturb them, she could only end the battle quickly. Yiqing Luo's fingers moved and the glower flame fan opened up. A burst of profound qi broke out from her body and condensed on the glower flame fan. Facing the wind, it slashed out numerous sharp blades. A large patch of trees in front of her instantly fell. Yiqing Luo's figure swayed as she scurried to the end of the fallen tree. A bewitching red dress, under the moonlight, was like a blazing rose blooming in the dark night, emitting a suffocating, fatal charm. She had just stood still. From all directions, a bunch of assassins dressed in black and covered in black cloth appeared. 30 over people, the weapons in their hands sparkled under the moonlight, directly surrounding Yiqing Luo within. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as there wasn't a trace of panic on her face. Yo, still playing encirclement? Yiqing Luo sneered as she swept the glower flame fan. The bewitching red glow was as fast as lightning as it directly shot out a wind blade. Following that, numerous silver threads shot out from the top of the glower flame fan, directly entangling those 30 over assassins. The speed was so fast that those assassins didn't even have time to react before their necks were sliced off by a cold, slender thing. Wherever Yiqing Luo went, the assassins didn't even have time to cry out before they died. Blood splattered. Yiqing Luo was like a fairy dancing under the moonlight, flirtatious and amorous. It wouldn't take long to deal with these assassins. In just a moment, the 30 assassins were all taken care of. Just as she was about to turn around, a killer suddenly sprang out from the bushes beside her. The curved blade in his hand directly chopped towards Yiqing Luo's neck. Yiqing Luo's reaction was swift as she bent her waist backwards and somersaulted sideways, trying to avoid the killer before settling him. Unexpectedly, when the killer saw her bending down to avoid the attack, he suddenly turned his hand and cut his own neck. This action made Yiqing Luo extremely stunned. The hot blood of the assassin splashed onto the ground. No matter how fast Yiqing Luo's reaction was to swiftly evade, she was still splashed with blood. The pungent smell of blood was extremely strong. Yiqing Luo swiftly retreated a few steps to avoid the killer's corpse falling down. He raised his hand and wiped the blood off his face. His pupils constricted. The thick smell of blood seemed to make one go berserk. Bright red blood stained her eyes. There seemed to be something spreading in her heart. It was a very subtle feeling, and Yiqing Luo didn't catch it. Chapter 967. The sight of blood incessantly stimulated her heart. The thick stench of blood also pervaded Yiqing Luo. She pressed one hand to her heart and the other to her head, moaning in pain. Little Luo Dmo Xian was jolted awake. The softness in his arms was long gone. Hearing the commotion outside, Dmo Xian quickly got up and followed the sound. He saw Yiqing Luo standing in the middle of the pool of blood. Assassins! Dmo Xian's brows creased tightly as he looked at the young lady who was standing in the middle, not knowing if she was deep in thought or doing something, as he stood there in a daze. He shouted a few times, but there was no response from her. Dmo Xian's heart skipped a beat as he flew forward, his arm habitually circling around her slender waist. Little Luo, what's wrong? What happened? As soon as he finished speaking, the girl in his arms actually raised the glowing flame fan and stabbed it towards his heart. Dmo Xian sensed something amiss and swiftly retreated. Yiqing Luo stabbed empty air and slowly withdrew her hand. Little Luo Dmo Xian's expression sunk slightly as he stared at Yiqing Luo worriedly. Her beautiful face was filled with a cold light. Her pink lips were slightly pursed, revealing a gloomy and terrifying sneer, as though she was ridiculing Dmo Xian. This face was indeed Yiqing Luo's face. This body was indeed Yiqing Luo's body. Even the way she played with the glower flame fan and squinted her eyes was no different from Yiqing Luo. However, the look in her eyes made one's heart tremble. What was going on? Why did Yiqing Luo suddenly become like this? Not allowing Dmo Xian to ponder further, Yiqing Luo's hand, which was fiddling with the glower flame fan, had already speedily opened up the feather fan, directly attacking towards his direction. The wind blade, which was glowing with red profound light, struck towards Dmo Xian. The majestic and powerful profound qi did not have the slightest bit of mercy. Dmo Xian swiftly retreated half a step and saw that the ground where he was standing earlier had several deep fissures. The ground cracked and the mountains shook. His expression was cold and his brows were tightly knitted. Lil Luo was really merciless towards him. Her charming eyes were filled with a strong killing intent. The familiar face was filled with madness and bloodlust. Lil Luo? Diamo Xian called out Yiqing Luo's name sharply. However, her next beam of mysterious light had already attacked. Kill you, a low murmur came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Her eyes were empty, but they were filled with a strong gloomy coldness. She leaped up into the air, and slashed out with profound energy that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. The piercing aura was swift and fierce, and it swept over from all directions. Diamo Xian had no choice but to form a barrier to defend himself. He could not attack Lil Luo'er, and could only dodge Lil Air's attacks. The current Lil Luo was obviously being controlled by something. It was exactly the same as a few days ago when Long Yunzhan was being controlled by the profound Yin energy. Could it be, was it the work of the dark forces again? When did the dark forces make their move? How did he do it? All these could only be known after Yiqing Luo was awakened. Diamo Xian's brows creased tightly as he dodged and evaded, not forgetting to call out Yiqing Luo's name. Bang! A loud sound reverberated as Yiqing Luo's leaping body spun and attacked downwards. This time round, Diamo Xian didn't dodge. He speedily locked Yiqing Luo's arms as he stretched out his hand to encircle her waist. Lil Luo, calm down a little. He unleashed a powerful, profound qi. No matter how Yiqing Luo struggled, she was unable to break free from Diamo Xian's restraint. Towards Diamo Xian's call, Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't hear it at all. Her scarlet eyes were filled with murderous intent,